When you're told don't be this certain way, a lot of people shut down the creativity of like, I would do that and I would do this and I would let myself think about that.
Because you don't even think about that.
Yeah, because
right?
you tell yourself like, don't go there. And suddenly now you're in a relationship and you're supposed to be erotic, but you don't actually know what you're doing and you don't trust yourself. And even if someone tries to like talk to you about it, you're like, but how do you actually do that? Like,
so I've read some old philosophical, they talk about women's sexuality being like a tiger out of a cage. Right. So you want to keep that tiger in a cage because it's almost like, you know, women get the power of their sexuality in terms of the multiple orgasms and all of that. It's almost like shark tasted its blood and now it wants blood everywhere and that becomes a very chaotic society. This is the Ocio Show with Rahul, where I have deep conversations with interesting people on topics that are meaningful, slightly personal, and perhaps controversial. Roll with this. I could do this all day. I could do this all day. Back up, I'ma run this town. I'm headed for the top and you know it's going down. Welcome to our 14th episode of the Ocio Show with Rahul. We have with us Keeley Rankin. Keeley is a relationship and intimacy coach. She's also a sex therapist. Welcome to the show,
Thank
Keeley.
you. It's so wonderful to be here.
You know, we met each other in 2010. We were at a TED conference, and you've come a long way from back in the day. So.
Yeah, I was just starting my practice back then. I was like...
And I remember you were studying to be a sex therapist. What led you to sex therapy and relationships with intimacy?
Yeah, so my story goes, I actually used to ride horses professionally. And I sort of had to figure out what I was doing after college because my dad was cutting me off. And I had actually been running my own business, buying and selling horses since I was 14. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go.
Is this competing? Equestrian
competition.
Stuff? Okay.
It's called 3-day eventing, jumping, things, English riding. But after about a year into the horses, I realized that I didn't have... It just wasn't fitting. Like, it wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted. I wanted something different. I wanted to still be connected to passion, but I just felt like I was kind of getting like lost in this world. And it's a very gypsy life. It takes an incredible amount of energy and strength and courage. And I was just like, this isn't it. I got to go figure out what I'm doing. So I came home, and I was supposed to go into real estate because that's what my family did. Back here in Northern California where we're filming. And I kept falling asleep to all of the real estate books that I was supposed to be reading. It's like I'd wake up and it's like 3 hours later and I was like, okay, well, I guess this isn't it because I can't stay awake. And the only books I wanted to read were about sex. And funnily enough, in my undergraduate program, I was in a class and they were like, you have to write a paper about what you're going to do with your future. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm going to be a professional horse rider. This is stupid. And they're like, you can't do a professional athlete. So I was like, okay, well, what else could I do? And I was like, I'll be a sex therapist. And I just like wrote a paper about it.
Got it.
So as things started to unfold and I started to feel into like what was next, I went back to this funny paper from my undergrad and I was like, I guess I should look into that.
Is that the lack of sex or is it the plenty of sex that led you to like, hey, I'm going to be interested in this particular area?
So that's a great question because I was always, because I happened to be good at riding horses, I was always taking lessons with people who were older and I was getting all of this information about sex like way before anyone else was getting it. So as my peers were coming of age and questions would be like, oh, how do you give a blowjob or what about birth control? I always had all the answers.
You had the answers, yeah. It's like that, have you seen that show on Netflix, I think called Sex Ed?
Oh yeah, that's great. I love that one.
Yeah, there's they're trying to give sex ed to the peers in the
it wasn't as extreme as that, but definitely I always felt like I had the answers and I always felt really comfortable talking about sex. I've had lots and lots of sex. It was pretty sexual.
Is it because you grew up in a sort of sexually libertine household or was it more on the other side where you couldn't talk about it?
I would say, honestly, my family was right in the middle. It was definitely not libertine. It was definitely not conversations that
not
were
like dinner
openly
table
had.
conversations.
Yeah, no. My family's conservative. It took them years to be okay with my work. For a very long time, I think my father, and under some circumstances, still doesn't tell people what I do.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I was always really comfortable around the topic. I never felt shame around it. I just felt a lot more curiosity. Like when people, when I was young and in high school and families would break up and there'd be this like weird whispering about like sex or affairs, I always was like, what is that? Like, what is it that drives families apart and causes all this chaos? Like, how does this work? And one of the things I was most interested in when I was younger was like, how does long-term romance work? Like how do couples for 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 years like stay sexually connected? Like what is that? How does that, what is that?
Yeah. So I had a story on this. One of my German friends, I was just talking to him many years ago, and he was like, his parents have been together for 55 years. And one day he goes and asks his mom, but the dad is not there, Mom, hey, what's the secret of you guys, being married for 55 years? And she's like, oh, we see other people.
Yeah. Outsourcing non-monogamy is one pathway through. Absolutely.
So that was an interesting perspective.
And the interesting thing about that, as I've learned so much more about all these pieces, is like for some people, that really truly is an answer, a solution to... Because a long-term relationship, a partnership, especially if you have kids, is so much more than just like where your orgasms come from or where your sexual pleasure comes from. And so for some people whose attachment styles are set up, that can be the perfect solution. For other people, it will drive them fucking crazy.
And
they'll jump off a
because
cliff.
sex is still a very personal and intimate act for a lot of people, and they take it very personally. For other people, not so much.
Right.
So this first segment, we'll talk about men.
Yay!
Men. We need to talk about men more, I think. We need to talk about women too, but I feel like in the podcasting world, there's a dearth of people talking about men and men's issues in general these days. So you decided to focus mostly on men. Why was that?
Yeah. Honestly, I was petrified of the huge territory of sexuality when I started out my practice, and I was like, okay, I'm going to like start doing this thing. I'm going to help people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's just so much to know. Like, I can't possibly know. I can't just open my doors and say, I'm going to help every person who has a sexual struggle. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to pick something that I think I can learn about, I can become an expert in, and I think I can help. And men who had performance struggles has always been near and dear to my heart. I talk about pretty openly that like one of my first sexual partners struggled with severe early ejaculation. So that's a vacillation between like ejaculating really, really quickly or losing the erection. And I always, in those experiences as a young person, I had no idea what was going on.
Because it's not a woman's body and it's a different body.
And like, who do you ask when you're like 14 or 15 for advice about these things?
Dump him, let him move on. That would be probably the advice you get, huh?
But I just really like men. I think they're great for so many reasons.
Yeah, of course. We're great, right? So in your practice, do you get these clients, men, come to you hearing about you, or are they generally referred to by some doctors or primary care physicians, or generally what percentage come via the insurance and all that, huh?
I would say it kind of comes in waves. Like there'll be like a wave of people coming individually, and then a wave of people coming from, the medical space, and then a wave coming from other therapists. It sort of just depends. I don't know that it's necessarily like, it's sort of just like from all over.
Yeah. And what percentage of, if you divide it between, for simplicity's sake, men, women, and couples, like what percentage of your practice is men generally?
Right now, I'm really low. I'd say predominantly I'm working with women, like over 60% is women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's a huge number.
Yeah.
So let's talk, you touched upon it. So let's talk about premature ejaculation.
Early ejaculation.
Fun topic.
Yeah.
So how prevalent is it? And is it age related? And and then let's talk about it and other
Yeah.
questions on this. But like,
Right,
how
right.
common is it?
Right. So I think when I start to talk about like male performance struggles, I like to say that there's these three primary places where men struggle. So there's premature ejaculation is like the clinical term. I say early ejaculation, so people will hear me say that a lot,
Yeah.
early ejaculation. I call it early because it's happening earlier than you want. And when I think about the struggle, it's the relationship that that person has with how fast they come. So it's not necessarily like if you think it's an issue, I also think it's an issue, essentially.
But some people are like, hey, I come early and I'm happy with it.
Yeah,
Great,
it doesn't
right?
bother them. It doesn't bother their partner. It's a non-issue.
Maybe it bothers a partner, but that's a different topic.
If it bothers their partner, then it is a problem.
Yeah.
But the other two are ED, erectile
Yeah.
dysfunction, and delayed orgasm. So hopefully we have time
We'll
to get
talk
into
about
that
the
with
other
this.
two as well.
But with the early
Early.
ejaculation piece, in regards to like who does it impact? First off, I think every person who has a cock, penis, however we want to talk about genitals, has experienced coming faster than they want. Like I think
But does it affect a teenager, for example? Probably
not always.
Probably not.
Not always. It really depends. I think in general there's this idea of like, oh, when you're young, you come early, it's no big deal. Like you'll work through it. And the truth is for a lot of people that's the case. Like they're so excited and they don't know anything and they don't know anything about their bodies and they have their first couple of sexual experiences and it happens really quick, but as they feel more comfortable in their bodies and they get to know women's bodies or everything, they kind of quote unquote outgrow it. But there is a vast majority of people where that's not the case, where they've been told or sold this idea that they're going to outgrow it and it doesn't.
So would you say that maybe when you're younger, exploring your body, you have early ejaculation and then you learn how to control, and then do you think over the age, as men age, it is more prevalent? Or is it is that a curve there, or is that, does it go down or go up or go down over the age?
I think it sort of depends. There's definitely some people who are like, oh, I struggled with it when I was younger. And then it kind of went away for a period of time. And then it came back again, like full speed later in life. There's some people who are like, I've never had a problem. And then suddenly it feels like they're not able to control.
Yeah.
So, everyone's experience of it is really, really different. And my whole like messaging on early ejaculation is like, let's take away the shame. Let's take away the feeling that something's wrong with you. Let's take away the piece of like we don't talk about it, that there's no solution. When you go seek medical treatment, there's the suggestion of antidepressants because a side effect of the SSRIs is that you have delayed orgasm. But there's a lot of side effects with that. And so a lot of people feel nervous about getting on a pharmaceutical to treat this, and so they don't. There's other things like taking a tranquilizer and then taking Viagra, but that becomes like a huge timing thing. It's expensive. You're putting your body through a lot. Like, you've got to time out the tranquilizer and time out the Viagra. I mean, it's like this whole pathway forward. But the way that I work with early ejaculation is based in teaching men how to feel the arousal in their body. So I work through a 5-step method, essentially, where it's like we keep coming back to these 5 steps and saying, like, where are you in relationship to these 5 steps? Like, how are they applying to what you're doing? And can you learn how to hold arousal in your body? Because a lot of times what happens is, for men, it's like masturbation gets treated as this like secret thing. Like you only masturbate if you can't get someone to be sexual with you, which I think is a shame in general to every
Is that sort of what is
person.
expected of men generally, you think, from their partners? Or because I think, are we in a society yet where masturbation is considered healthy, or
I think
not
in San
really?
Francisco we're in a very
bubble of
of like,
acceptance,
it's fine, like self-pleasure, that's a great thing, but for a lot of people there's still a lot of shame around
So is
self-pleasure.
the early ejaculation a medical issue?
No, it's not a medical issue.
Okay.
In my experience, it's never been a medical issue. It's a relationship issue around how you're holding arousal in the
I
body.
see. So you being obese or you being certain prone to chronic health conditions doesn't lead you to this early ejaculation. Okay. So if they have it, so how can they avoid it? Like people who are just, let's say, an 8-year-old watching this, like, is there a way to avoid it even? Before even you even treat it? Or is that
Right.
not research enough?
So I think my experience of people who have a good relationship with their arousal and a good relationship with their eroticism in their body has a lot to do with the way their parents held pleasure in the home. Did you see your parents take time to relax? Did you see them indulge in things? Oftentimes when I ask clients who struggle with early ejaculation, like what was going on at home, they often say like there was this emphasis on working and like doing things, like getting stuff done. There's never this like, yeah, like I just would sit back and enjoy a glass of wine and just like enjoy and relax and feel my body and not have that urgency to get somewhere. Not always, that's not every single person's experience, but predominantly early on, someone learns like, gotta hurry up and get through things. Like there's a pressure to get through things. And then it bleeds into, as arousal starts to enter into the body, what does the body do? The body starts to feel like, I can't enjoy this. I don't know where to put it. And so there's two options, which is either come quickly to get away from this uncomfortable energy that's you don't know is happening, what to do with it, or you lose the erection and you go into what is severe early ejaculation, where it's like you vacillate between like coming right away or just losing the erection altogether.
So that's there's a whole, I've seen this, there's a slow sex movement.
Right.
You think that's sort of the counter to sort of, or the French way, they do everything very slow and enjoy and, have a dinner for like,
it can be, but
3 hours.
But it's also like how, I guess the solution to, if you're watching this, you're 18, you're worried you're going to have early ejaculation. Like, first off, like, it's fine. Like, coming quickly once is not early ejaculation. Like, early ejaculation is a continual experience where you feel like you are not able to control. You don't ever feel like you have a sense of when it's happening. You just go from like, essentially like 1 to 10, and you never feel like there's time in between to actually enjoy the experience that you're having. Enjoy the person in front of you, enjoy the pleasure in your body. There's just this panic. I often, in the way I talk about it, it's like I talk about the anxiety curve and the arousal curve being married together. So as your arousal gets higher, your anxiety gets higher. And at some point when you cross a 5 on anxiety, you're in a full fight or flight mode, which is like heightened cortisol. Your system is like, what am I going to do? And so really one of the main, a big part of the steps is separating the anxiety from the arousal, so you can be in arousal without your nervous system thinking something's fucking wrong right
But is
now.
there any situation where you don't have that anxiety curve?
And you're orgasming quickly?
But or your
So one of the
no
other
anxiety curve
one of the other
happens.
things that can happen is an oversensitivity. So some people, like some men on their cocks, will have an area on their cock that sort of just sends a message to the brain like, come quick, come quick. So it's sort of desensitizing that particular area. It's normally around the head of the cock where that happens. And so that, those are one of the fastest, easiest ways to treat. If that's the situation, it's normally like, okay, like here's what's going on, and you're
Maybe
good.
have some desensitizing gel or something.
I never recommend desensitizing gel, actually.
Okay.
I one time got paid by Trojan because they were working on their desensitizing condoms and things. And they were like, would you recommend this to your clients? And I was like, no, I would not. Like, I'll give you guys what I know because you're paying me and this is, whatever. But I'm like, no, I would never recommend this, because the idea with my whole idea around sex in general, and definitely with people who struggle with early ejaculation, is like, it's about enjoying the experience. Putting on a gel that numbs you is the opposite. We're saying like, let's just pretend that that's not there and we'll like numb it out.
But it's not going to get you anywhere. It doesn't 100% numb you out. At some point, it maybe numbs it out, 80%, but it doesn't fully numb you out. I guess that's how they work, I'm guessing, right? But it's not, of course, you're not getting the full enchilada on this,
Yeah, I mean, the idea is to feel more pleasure, not to tune it out. And so, like, could you use it as like a crutch on some circumstances? Sure, that's fine.
But then how do you,
so then how do you, solution.
How do you, if you have it, how do you prevent it?
Prevent it?
Not prevent it. How do you cure it?
Right, so you move through the 5 steps. that I've created, which is learning a specific type of breath work, learning where you are in your arousal curve and your anxiety curve.
Is that 1 to 10 or like?
Yeah. So the curve is just an imaginary curve. Everyone's is different, but essentially it's like 1 to 10. 1 is I'd be interested in having sex, but I don't necessarily like feel anything in my cock. 4 is hard enough to penetrate, which is like if you were to press down on your cock, like it stays hard enough that it'd be able to enter in for penetration. 9 is the point of no return, which is like I'm definitely going to come.
Yeah.
There's no coming back from this.
10 is
10
you
would be
have
the
come,
orgasm.
basically.
Yeah, right. And so learning where you are on that arousal curve is really important. The third step is learning a breath called anal breath. So what happens when anybody orgasms is you have involuntary contractions. That's actually what a clinical orgasm is these involuntary contractions in your pelvic floor. And what happens a lot of time with men who come quickly is because they're so anxious and nervous and they have so many things floating around about early ejaculation, they tighten down into their asshole. So one of the pathways to release and not come quickly is to learn how to soften the asshole, actually. So the fourth step is learning how to come down the arousal curve, actually. So you are able to track where you are on the arousal curve. You've separated arousal from anxiety. So you're able to now go up and down and know where you are on your curve.
Yeah.
But when you get to a place where you're like, oh, I'm at an 8 and I think I don't want to come yet, you can turn to this anal breath and drop yourself down 2 levels. Know what it means to come down. Because a lot of people who struggle with early ejaculation have never actually come down the arousal curve because they're petrified of like losing the erection or they don't know what normal sexuality looks like. And so it's learning.
But is it
all
a real
these
thing that when you come down the curve, you can lose erections?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're first learning it. Like you start to try and come down and you're not really sure and what are you doing? And you come flying down and then you panic because now you've lost your erection. Yeah, all of that. It's all completely normal.
And this, it's definitely a taught skill that the anal breath, like everybody can learn it.
For sure. All of this, everyone can learn. Yeah. 100%.
And then what's the 5th step?
The 5th step is learning to move the erotic energy all over your whole body. So a lot of people get hyper focused, like just in genitals during sex. And it's sort of softening the whole body and saying like, okay, like I'm going to just see like what other sensations am I feeling? Like where else can I notice sensations? And can I imagine letting the energy and the pleasure, you know, your genitals are the pleasure center of your body. Like actually the pleasure center. And the whole rest of the body can have lots and lots of pleasure. So it's allowing your brain, your mind, and everything to sort of like move out from there.
So I know there's a lot of erogenous zones for women that I've read about, but are there more for men?
Are there
other
than
genitals?
Yes, absolutely.
Like what are some things that men should pay attention to?
So I don't believe in like erogenous zones like as like a book and like an idea that like this is going to be the one thing for your partner. I normally say your whole body is an erogenous zone. And to treat your whole body as you enter into these erotic states as like, what's here? Like what are we finding? What does it feel like? What is that part calling for? What is it interested in? And so it's, you know, exploring yourself with your own hands or your own different types of objects, feathers, you know, your shoes would be a great, you know, tool to play with different
I bought it especially for the BDSM angle
there
today.
You go. Yeah, there's all sorts of different ways to play. And so I try really not to be prescriptive with people because then I think sometimes they can feel like, oh, that didn't work for me, so I'm broken or something's wrong with me. And also when you get prescriptive, people stop trying on new things. So I really try and always stay in like your whole body is an erogenous zone, every part of it.
Yeah, if you can feel
see.
it, if you can feel it more. All right, we move to the next topic that you talked about, which is related to early ejaculation, which is erectile dysfunction.
ED, yeah.
ED. So I know you said that early ejaculation is really not medical. So is ED medical?
Can be, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the first place anyone would want to check is with a medical doctor to make sure. It can be a indication of heart disease.
Heart disease, cholesterol, like all of that.
Yeah, you want to see a medical doctor, have everything ruled out, have things checked.
But I've read stories and heard private commentary from these men who are athletes and bodybuilders, and they are, you would assume they're like in their top physical form,
Right.
but they still have ED in some ways or form. So
Yeah.
in those cases, I don't know, maybe it's medical, maybe it's not. What do you think?
I mean, I always suggest if someone mentions that they're struggling with ED, first and foremost to go and see a medical doctor.
Yeah.
And most likely you want to get in with a urologist, somebody who can really test different things. There's 3 ventricles of blood that run up into the cock, so there can be damages. Like it's good to rule out that it's not a medical thing before we start heading down the path of the psychological. Not that, I think everyone could use at least 5 sessions with a sex coach. Honestly,
Yeah.
like we're all so fucked up around sex and relationships, truly, and just to
Even our
like
beliefs
talk things
and-
out, and just sort of like explore. So it's not necessarily like, oh,
Yeah.
it would be wrong to go down the psychological, but sometimes there is a real medical component,
Sure, yeah.
and it's more for everybody's safety that we want to make sure we're addressing all of those different
Yeah.
pieces.
And how prevalent is it?
ED.
According to you?
I think, again, this is this piece of like, I think every person, almost every man who has a cock has experienced ED at times. Our bodies are not light switches. And this idea of like, I should just walk into this room, turn the light switch on, and the light works.
yeah.
It's like, that's not how our
Sure,
bodies
yeah.
work.
But how much of it is like, hey, I'm just not aroused with this situation versus I have a dysfunction now.
Tired, or I haven't eaten, or I haven't slept, or
Yeah,
I'm thinking about
stressed
work,
out,
or
whatever,
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, there's just so many things that can weigh into it, and so I think some of the time it's helping people relax around like. I normally say if you're experiencing anything more than 20% of the time, it's something we can look at. 20% of
yeah.
the time, though, like you're just not going to
happens.
have control over your body. Like that's just how bodies are. They're not,
But generally, are these, do you think it grows more with age?
It's I think there used to be this idea of like men who get older end up getting ED. Like this is a thing that Viagra and Cialis are going to treat for, men over 50 or men over 55 or men over 60.
Market, right? Yeah.
There is a way in which our society is very much distancing itself from our own internal experiences and our own abilities to follow our impulses and what feels good because of the tech and porn and all of these other ways in which we're sort of like moving along. People are not necessarily always aware of or connected with their own bodies in the way that we do need to in order to be able to follow arousal. So as arousal starts to build for people who struggle with ED, there can be all sorts of things that come in and sort of stop, shut down, take away from the, sometimes it's just performance anxiety. Like you're with a new partner, you really,
like you wanna
really
do
like
well,
them.
but
You want, I really, the more you care about them,
impress
the
them.
harder it is to get hard. I hear that all the time. But when I don't care about someone, it's not a problem. But when I care about them, suddenly, there's all of these pieces that come in. And you had mentioned earlier, like our eroticism is incredibly unique and incredibly personal, and it has all of these different components in it.
Yeah.
And so ED can touch into like not being able to feel into your own body. It can touch into not being able to follow your impulses. It can fill into feeling a lot of shame or embarrassment about what turns you on. It can be just like you're not in the mood, or it can also be an indication of like, you're not into this person.
There's so many different, things. And for people who are, hey, how can I prevent this from happening? What do you say? I don't want to
Prevent
cure it.
this
I want
from
to prevent.
happening?
Can I do that? Work out every day?
Well,
I don't know.
look, if people are sitting there thinking, how do I prevent this from happening? They're already in an anxious place. So
So you're probably going to get
most
it,
likely it's going to happen at some point. You're going to panic.
Yeah.
You're going to end up in my
Yeah.
office like, shit, this is happening. And then the spiral starts where it's like chicken or the egg. Because that happens with people sometimes. It's like they're so anxious and so worried that something that was just a normal experience sends them down a path of
Maybe
like
you should
complete
stop
panic.
watching those porn stars perform. Maybe that's
Yeah,
the first
porn
step.
is porn has been a really interesting. In general, I really like porn. I also consult for the porn industry sometimes, and I don't have a I think it's great in a lot of ways. But I think the trouble is where people start to think that that's really how sex goes, that there's no awkward moments, that cocks don't go up and down, because they do.
Maybe they should show the behind the scenes.
I know.
Porn, you know.
They showed the fluffers, if they showed
Exactly.
the injections, and male porn stars, man, they are a special breed.
They
I mean,
are.
it's
And
it's a job.
I've heard about some of them have some special steroids or some special whatever.
Yeah, they're
to
doing.
be hard and
they're
that's their
like
only
on
job.
4,
be hard
5,
for
6
like 5
performance
hours.
enhancers. They do the injections.
Yeah.
But the trick with them is they have to come on command.
Yeah.
When it's time to come, they have to come on command.
And
And if they don't get
early.
rebooked.
They cannot have
No.
premature.
No. I mean, it's a
early
real-
ejaculation. You know.
That's like 1% of the male population.
Yeah. But a lot of the men are looking at this and like, hey, there's something wrong with me.
Right.
Right. Like it's.
Right.
Yeah.
Or that's how sex is supposed to look. It's
Yeah.
supposed to look that perfect or that passionate or that
Yeah.
particular way. And they're missing all of the real experiences. What I love about like the OnlyFans space, or how porn is sort of like coming out more, is, you know, Holly Randall, I love her. She's great. And she, you know, she interviews all these porn stars and talks about these things to sort of like open up this space of like, this is work, but the sex I'm having at home is totally different.
Different, yeah. I always hear that. I mean, I've seen some Holly Randall episodes.
she's so
it's
great.
So let's say you have it as a man. How do you go about? I mean, let's say we rule out the medical issues. And,
What do you start to look at?
Yeah. What do you do? Like pop a pill, or like how's that addressed?
Well, a lot of people who come to me, the pill isn't working. Like the psychological component is so strong that they're taking pills and it's not working. Or a lot of people actually have really strong side effects to those, the medication. Number one, they're expensive. Also, there's a timing thing, you know, 40 minutes to an hour after. There's definitely the headache. You know, you take it and you're going to fight with your partner between the time you take it and 40 minutes later. I mean, there's a lot of pieces around it that are tough. But you know, I think the first piece to look at is like just the pressure in general you feel around the situation. Like how much pressure are you putting on yourself to get hard, to come? Like how much pressure is your partner putting on you? Like have you guys talked about this?
How much of that is you putting self-pressure versus your partner putting pressure
It's
on
both, I think.
You think it's both?
You know, everybody's relationship is different, but I've definitely worked with men where they're like, my partner's taking it incredibly personally and it's freaked them out. And like,
you think they're thinking it's them rather than
so predominantly what I normally tell men who struggle with early ejaculation, one of the first things we do is like how to talk to your partner. Like what relationships are you in? Are you dating? Are you in a long-term relationship? And how to talk to them about it. Because women will take it personally. There's just no way around that. It's me. You're not turned on by me anymore. You don't think I'm sexy. I did something wrong. You've never had this before. So oftentimes we have a conversation like, let's not just pretend this isn't happening. Let's really talk about like, hey, so this is what happens for my body. I'm having a really great time. I think this is sexy about you. If they know something they can try, like after they figure out sort of like what turns them on, then you can start to offer things. But not just leaving it as this like,
unspoken.
it's not happening. We're just going to pretend it's not happening.
Like how our grandparents did, probably.
Right.
Yeah. So, do you think this happens mostly in the heterosexual world, or this is also
Happens in the gay community as well. Yeah,
Okay.
with a lot of shame.
But do they ask for help, or not really, or who's better actually to ask for help?
Straight men, for
Yeah.
sure. Straight men.
Okay.
At least to me. I mean, I think I present
Yeah.
heterosexual. All of my marketing is primarily
yeah.
in that direction. But yeah, absolutely gay men struggle with it. And I think that there's a particular type of shame that comes up, which is really unfortunate because, you know, the space of ED is that like stepping into your arousal fully, being able to like to really let go of and trust in your cock and to be able to step into it, which is a little similar to the delayed orgasm, which I'm hoping we'll get to. But it's, you know, I think in the gay community, there's this idea of like everybody's sexually liberated and they're just all like free and open and
So
what
if you
should be the
don't-
issue.
And especially if you have, you know, ED in the gay community, you're like, oh, okay.
Right.
You're not a good member, good standing member of the community.
And one of
you
the
know?
comments I often hear from gay men that I've worked with is like, you know, the guy will be standing there like, well, how long is it going to take you to get hard? Like there's again, like there's some sort of like mechanical.
There's no sugar coating.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Have
which
you worked with...
puts pressure, which makes the situation worse,
Worse.
which again, we just are adding fuel to the fire.
So, have you worked with trans men on this?
No.
Okay.
I've not. Yeah.
So so then how do you, so pill, so if you don't have pill, how do you, have a conversation with your partner.
Yeah.
What else to do?
Yeah. So addressing that pressure piece, right? Taking the pressure out of the room, taking the pressure off of yourself. Like, yes, the end goal is to be able to
Do you admit that this is happening? Like, this is, with your partner?
Telling yourself like, okay, look, I'm here in this place where I'm losing my arousal. A lot of times people tell themselves stories like, once I lose my arousal, we'll never come back, which is not true.
Yeah.
Like, people who don't struggle with performance
right?
issues, like your arousal comes and it goes, and it's like it's up and it's down, and that is a normal experience for any person, any person, men and women. This is happening all the time. We just it's like you don't notice really because we're still able to play in those ways. So it's like, okay, this is happening, and if you notice the anxiety coming on, meeting yourself in your anxiety, and always turning back into where is my pleasure? So the real question, if somebody is sitting here thinking like, I'm going to workshop this myself, is like, where is my pleasure? Can I feel my body? Is there any place in my body that wants pleasure? Is there something that I need, something that I want? Can I connect with that? And does it feel safe enough to ask? Because sometimes the answer is like, well, I really want this thing, but this relationship is new, or I know I can't get that here. And so it's like, okay, well, what from that can you get? And that's where we start to go a little bit into like the realm and territory of fantasy, allowing fantasy in. And sometimes with the men I've worked with around ED, it's like, okay, so it's not performance stuff, it's not anxiety stuff, it's not necessarily how they're masturbating, because sometimes how people masturbate or the amount of porn that they're watching is making it difficult for them to feel aroused in other situations. Or, it's not necessarily...
It's like if it's an extreme porn, normal situations don't turn you on sort of thing. Yeah.
Right. It can be like... Or it's not even the extremeness of the porn. That's one component. That's like people who are kinky and they want to have the kink around. It can just be like the intensity of the porn. Like a lot of times when people watch porn, they pull up like 6 videos at the same time, and then they fast forward to like the part that they want, and then they're just like switching between the 2 or the 6, or they have them all up. It's like there's just this super highway of like, wow, that's exciting, and your brain is like, wee, like this is so great. Like
it's hard to get the dopamine hit from real life,
Right, and there's also another person in front of you, which is a relational dynamic, which is the difference between solo masturbation practice and partnered practice, right, or partnered play. It's like there's another person that you're now navigating as well. These pieces are complex. But this last component is the fantasy space of like what turns you on in your mind? Like what can you think about? And can we bring that forward and in what capacity? And that's dependent.
Are men generally more suited or better at fantasies than women, or vice versa?
No way. I mean, it's very mixed. My experience of working with people around fantasy, and I talk about this a lot with clients, that because I created a model, it's called the balanced human sexuality model. At one point, I'll rebrand it because I know that sounds super lame, but if you imagine a circle and you divide it into 3 parts, there's relationship and intimacy and love in one section. There's erotic embodiment and sensation in another section, and there's fantasy, anticipation, and creativity in another. So in order to stay, in my belief, in order to stay balanced in your eroticism, each individual person needs to have all 3 of these things, and they also need to have all 3 of these things in a couple. And when one of those get out of balance, it's like, oh yeah, well, that's why things aren't feeling good. That's why eroticism isn't flowing. It's like there's an overfocus in the love category, but there's no one's feeling any sensations, or there's an overfocus in fantasy and it's not bleeding into the rest of the place. So I talk about it more as like, yeah, you just didn't learn this part of eroticism because no one does, because our culture doesn't talk about it. And so let's go explore and see. And I came up with it actually because I was sitting in one of my sex therapy trainings and people were talking about fantasy, and I was like, what the fuck are these people talking about? I was like, where are they coming up with this? Like they just made this. So anyway, went on a deep 10-year journey to understand my own fantasies, to get connected with them, to like understand the nuances, helped many people on that pathway also of learning about what fantasy is. So one of my favorite things to do is sit down with a client and ask about fantasy, and they go, no idea what you're talking about. And I was like, yes. I was like, let's go. Like,
Yeah,
because that's a
homework,
whole space to explore, which is like, it's such a fun journey with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what did they say? The biggest sex organ are not
Is our
not,
brain.
Yeah, not boobs or cock, but it's the brain. Between your ears. So it's what do they call? Well, the sapiosexual is like getting turned on by intelligence, but like the brain is a sexual organ, right?
Yeah.
So okay, let's talk about delayed orgasms. So
Delayed.
early ejaculation to delayed orgasms. So that's good, right? Delayed orgasms or no?
If you
How delayed are we
talked
talking,
to a person who struggles with delayed orgasm, they would probably say, I'll swap out early ejaculation.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How delayed are we talking about here? Hours?
Like they don't
Never?
come.
Oh,
Like they
wow.
won't come. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So men who struggle with delayed orgasm, I think because there's like everyone's, laughing, which I hate that idea of like at early ejaculators because they can't control themselves because there's this idea that somehow it's like
less
a
off or
controllable
whatever, yeah.
thing, which it's not. No guy, if there's any women out there listening, no guy is like, I want to come faster and end this experience. Like no guy ever said that. Like everybody wants to be there longer with you, like 100%. Like. Yeah. But I think sometimes there can be this thing of like, oh, he came quickly, he doesn't care about me. It's like, trust me, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
So, and ED's gotten a lot of attention because the pharmaceutical company came in and said, we can fix this issue.
Yeah.
Delayed orgasm is complex. And I normally tell clients when they show up, I'm like, look, you got to give me minimum of 6 months of weekly sessions before you're going to see anything that remotely feels like a change. It's just a beast of a thing to work with. And it's, confusing and painful. And a lot of the men kind of like don't know where to turn. And they're oftentimes very, very sexual, actually. Like they love sex. They love these experiences. But their partner starts to feel like I'm kind of like tapping out a lot. And
you're like, hey, like, am I not turning you on?
I'm
like,
not
what's
turning
happening?
you on. Why aren't you coming? There's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
When they want to have a baby, that gets really complicated. There's...
Yeah, and it's a big thing. Like a lot of people, I've talked to people where, I don't know, 80% of their pleasure is making their partner come.
Right.
And for those people, if delayed orgasms are like a problem, right? Like, because they're like, oh shit, like I don't get 80% of my pleasure now because, they're not coming.
Yeah. So, the delayed orgasm can be as simple as the way someone has been masturbating or learned to masturbate just isn't compatible with intercourse or another person touching them. So it can be like they masturbate by like humping a pillow or humping the bed. Or they, there was like a big thing for a while about like a death grip, but it just has to do with like the way you're touching your body or just the way you're learning how to experience your body and find pleasure. Those are sort of the easiest ones to correct because that's like we get you a fleshlight, which is a male masturbation sex toy, and we have you start to explore fantasies in your own mind, and we get you connected with your body, and we start to explore sensations. Most often it's sort of like this deeper layer of like it's not safe to fully let go. So we talked earlier about the involuntary contractions that happen during orgasm, and there also is this sort of like loss of consciousness. Like you kind of go into a place where like you're almost helpless in the orgasm. Like you really go off, I think, somewhere truly in those moments. And if relationships are not safe, if people are not safe, if closeness isn't safe, then finding that place of letting go is a deep psychological block.
What they say is, right, I mean, I've heard this, orgasms are sort of our window into the other world or unknown for a brief moment.
I know.
It's
beautiful.
So if you don't feel safe to like let go to the other world.
Right.
Yeah, that becomes a challenge.
Yeah.
And can people prevent it from happening in some ways?
I don't know that I've ever worked with an early or a delayed orgasm person that was like, there was this point where I started to feel like this could be an issue. Predominantly folks who struggle with delayed orgasm kind of always have had it. It may come on suddenly, like after a trauma happens or like a big life change. but there's always like some indicators in their history.
Point in time.
Right.
So you said, I think from curing it, you said two things. One is making sure that you are okay with a newer pattern of pleasure,
practicing in a different way,
like
right?
in a fleshlight or something like that. And the second one, being in a safe relationship that you feel to let go.
Yeah.
Anything else to like cure it or fix it?
Yeah, so a lot of the things that I end up working with clients on is like getting connected with where they're actually, because I think sometimes what can happen for all of us, all people, there's moments where you're like, I can find my orgasm, and there's moments where I can't. People who struggle with delayed orgasm are sort of always hoping that they're going to find it and feeling so much pressure that they're supposed to find it that they're sort of moving past sometimes like the opportunity windows. So, it's like if you struggle with delayed orgasm and you're with a partner and you're 10 minutes in and you feel like, okay, there's that impulse. I think I could go from my 8 to my 9. But they'll be like, oh, that's too soon. Because normally I don't come for 45 minutes. Then the window's gone.
Yeah.
And then we don't get it back. Because there is this place where you're like, I think I could find my orgasm here. And you lean in. And so it's teaching men in that space is like, and this is the same with women actually with delayed orgasm. It's like teaching people to feel like, where is that place where you can lean in and to go into it, and you can see if there's a safety piece.
It could be different with different partners too, right? Because one might be, hey, 10 minutes is good for them. Somebody else, like, half an hour or whatever. Right?
I mean, look, most women are good at 10 minutes. In general, most women are like, 10 minutes are like, this is good, this is great.
Yeah.
Like, this feels... I'm ready to move on to the next thing or different ways of intimacy. Yeah,
especially if they have orgasm before or whatever.
Right.
Like,
It's,
So is this delayed orgasms always coupled with ED or?
No. Delayed orgasm is very rarely coupled with ED, actually.
So
delayed orgasm folks normally get hard, stay hard, very hard, with no issue and no ED.
I see.
Yeah. Typically, not always. Again, everybody's so different. So we're talking like overgeneralizations here, but typically there's no ED stuff in there.
Got it. So how much of...
and again, the same as the ED piece is finding fantasy that they can lean into can be really helpful also.
Got it. How much of men's sexual topics or issues are related to self-confidence?
It's a great one. I think probably a lot of it. Yeah. Yeah.
And so then part of your practice is to engender more self-confidence?
Well, I think it's about self-confidence, but it's also about body awareness and permission. A lot of the men who show up in my office, like, they're really great people. One of the places inevitably I end up with almost every man I'm working with is like the Me Too space. I don't want to be a perpetrator. I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to make someone do something they don't want to do. I don't want to bring my eroticism because it's wrong or gross or bad or it's energy that feels like it could hurt somebody. So there can be this holding back.
Yeah.
And I think starting to look at the difference between an abuser or a perpetrator and what is healthy eroticism in a consenting adult relationship, it just takes time to work through. And to find that sense of like, I get to love and like and feel sexually open to what I like, and nothing is wrong or broken with it.
Yeah, so it's interesting that we bring up this Me Too because there's a lot of content online about like this. We want men to be men, and sort of we want men to go back to these cavemen where you can go take what you want and masculine, and we feel sexy about it. Right. But also there's a whole concept about consent and this whole concept about there's a thin line between. So like men are confused in a lot of these circles. A lot of the one I talk to, So it's where do you draw the line? Huh?
My husband loves movies, so we watch a lot of movies, and we go back occasionally and watch like movies from the 80s. So we were watching like Jerry Maguire, Ghostbusters, and it is it's uncomfortable to watch those films now because there's so much pushing.
Not politically correct in today's generation.
Right. Women are saying, no, I'm not interested. And men are just pushing past those lines. But I think what is wanted or being called for now is for men to be able to stand in their power, stand in their erotic confidence, and say what they want. So what I normally suggest to my clients who are dating, because this comes up predominantly in dating, is you say like, I want to fuck you. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
So it's like you come forward and you name.
So it's not like you actually fuck somebody, but you have to like
right.
say
so it's
that.
Not saying
So
like,
it's not like,
do you want to have sex tonight, or would you want to fuck me? It's not this hesitancy. It's
okay.
like, I want this.
Yeah.
Blah, blah,
What do you
blah,
want?
blah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Right? Like, so you can get a sense of like, this is what I want. Where are you in that?
Yeah. And also respecting it once if it's a no, or if it's a...
Right.
You know,
that's what's changed a lot.
But then the
multiple
problem
no's
is like,
not a
go
thing.
take what you want as well. Like, okay, no is just a starting point in the conversation. You know what I mean?
Right.
No
See,
is
and
not a
that
no.
I think that's the difference, is that a no means no these days. And that, yeah, I mean, I think no means no at this point. There's no, and that is what's changed from the 80s, because it used to be no means keep trying. No means send flowers to my house. No means like just keep asking me and eventually I'll go on a date with you. You know, we saw it in...
what is that limit? 5 times I ask, or like 10 times?
Right,
Like...
right.
Yeah.
And everybody ends up really confused, and the relationship is really confusing.
Yeah.
And
so I grew up in south of India, and you know, you see all the pop culture and movies.
Right.
No is just a starting point, you know. So it's one of those cultures where, you just ask 5 times and people say yes.
Right. Well,
so that's the message we're sending to the young
there's
men.
was a message for a really long time to women, is like, don't make yourself too available.
Yeah.
Like a conversation I have a lot with women is like, but when is it too early to have sex?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we're going to take that entirely out of here. Like, it's, when do you want to have sex? And it's not deciding before you go on the date. It's deciding in the moment how you feel. Like, I feel connected to this person. But I feel like I want to do these things in that moment. And at any point, you can change your mind. Yeah. It's not like once you're in, you have to keep going.
But it's a thing, right? I mean, people ask these questions. Okay, if you're dating in America today, okay, what is an acceptable time frame for somebody to have sex?
Whenever they feel ready. Both people feel ready.
But that's in an ideal self-aware position, right? So what do you say to people who are not self-aware?
Let's work on self-awareness before you date. Truly. I mean, because there's going to be so many times in a relationship, to have a healthy relationship, that you are going to need to be able to feel yourself in that moment and make a decision. This is not like, it's, again, we went back to earlier on, it's not prescriptive.
For a lot of people, but I hear you in terms of...
It's learning that. It's learning that.
What do you feel, right? So, And is it going back to self-confidence for men, is it more of an issue with, let's say, nerds? Or it can happen to the best of us?
Our tech.
Living in Silicon Valley and all of that, huh?
Yeah, I think that there's, I think of confidence as coming from having had positive experiences. So we cannot build confidence without having a positive experience.
Yeah. So success begets success in some ways.
Right. And so if you were a person that didn't feel like you could talk to women, or felt like you were striking out all the time, or you fumbled your words, or you just, all of these different things that can happen to someone who might feel like they're the quintessential nerd. Yeah. It can be really, really hard to start to find footing. And so it's starting small. It's just starting to talk to people on the street, and then occasionally saying hi to someone that you find, attractive. Like, there's all of these things where it's like, we have to build confidence. It's not like you just cast a spell and somebody is confident. It's having tried things to trust yourself, truly coming back to that, and feeling like you're okay on the other side, and that you read the signs appropriately. I think the biggest fear is that someone's going to be a perpetrator or do something that makes someone else uncomfortable or make themselves look like a fool. Yeah. And all of those things are possible at some point, but there's oftentimes signs before that, that if you're paying attention, you're like, oh, okay, that person's not interested. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to feel my feelings about that. I'll talk to people about how rejected I feel, but working through it.
And do you think we should, as society, do courses on relationship and sexuality in school and like growing up? Because we never are told what happens when you get married, what happens in a relationship, what happens in a sexual relationship. So isn't it good to like
but would we agree on it? I don't know. We're just like we're 10 days into Trump I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't have to go there, but I've stayed away from, and I made a decision very early on to not get involved in essentially people under the age of 21's sex education. I think, as I mentioned earlier when we started talking, sex is such a huge space, truly, and I feel like I can't hold the torch for that. I don't think I have the energy. I don't think I have.
But not you personally. Do you think we should, like how we have courses on geography and
I think we should have courses
history.
on accounting.
Yeah. No, what about
100%.
relationships or dating
Yeah,
101
yeah. No,
or
I'm just
whatever?
saying, like for young children, like I think we should have courses that are like about real life,
Yeah.
like literally things like accounting
Yeah.
and paying your taxes,
Yeah.
which don't exist now.
Yeah.
And I think sex,
Relationships 101 or like sex 101. Why are we not talking about these things? Because is it like people are going to have sex because we talk about sex? Because they're anyway going to have it. You know what I mean? Like,
what's interesting about eroticism and why I'm pausing and I'm thinking about this is because, so I did grow up with sex education. Like there was,
But that was it you're focused on abstinence mostly?
No, it
and
wasn't.
was
Actually,
a good
surprisingly,
sex?
I was
Okay.
in high school in Arizona, and it wasn't abstinence. Actually, it was like, relational and appropriate, and these are how you get pregnant, and these are the genitals. And I did actually learn a lot. It was like pretty interesting. I think in many ways, though, if we're going to go into relationships, it is so much more what you see around you. So we could do a relationship course for young kids about like, here are things you might want to expect, and here's how the honeymoon phase works, and here's all these things.
Here's
but then they're
abuse,
going home and they're seeing
different
things
like,
happen.
This is not relationship. That's not what my teacher told me.
Right. Or, I think that the dive that is necessary for people to understand themselves and to see themselves in relationship requires introspective self-reflection. And while that could be a course, I don't know, it could be interesting in high school. I'm just not sure. I don't know. My child is young right now, so let's rejoin in like 10 years and have a conversation about what I think he might need. But I think it's what children observe around them from a young
where I
age.
come from is, yes, the way your relationships are heavily influenced by your parents or what is in your immediate vicinity. But we
and
never,
how people treat each other
but
in general.
Is that, it's a controversial topic. But is that the right healthy relationship that society defines it to be? And a lot of people think what marriage is what they see in movies, or they see their friends' parents or your parents are.
Right.
At least have a conversation around. This is a good or bad or maybe these are different forms, not even good or bad, making it good or bad. Okay, going back to men. So how much of sexuality is affected by loneliness?
Yeah, that's a big one. Absolutely. Yeah.
Are more people lonely now than before?
Yeah. I mean, the loneliness is a huge epidemic around the world. The isolation, especially, I've seen it a lot after COVID. There's all these new studies coming out. People aren't hosting as much anymore. They're not getting together anymore. We can't really talk about sexuality, eroticism without talking about relationships and the ability to navigate complex relationships. And I think what's harder as we get more removed from society is that we can't handle the natural bristles of human connection. None of us are perfect. We make tons of mistakes. We hurt other people. That's a part of human relationship. We bump into each other, sometimes consciously, unconsciously, sometimes intentionally. These things happen. And I think what's happening now, and hopefully we're able to make a course correction, is that people are like, oh, that person hurt me, they're out. I'm going to cut them off until worlds get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And there's, a lot of people are trying to talk about forgiveness. A lot of people, I think, are trying to talk about the same thing I'm talking about here. But I think people feel hurt, and then they don't know what to do with that hurt. And they feel like, oh, I have to protect myself. And so I'm going to shut down. Or, there's a lot of social anxiety. It's something I see a lot with clients, both male and female. The social anxiety of, I don't belong here, I don't fit in here. They can't find their feet in settings, and so they remove themselves further and further and further and further.
What do you think is causing that social anxiety?
Well, first off, I think it's always been around. I think social anxiety has always existed for a certain number of people. Social anxiety has a lot to do with exposure. Like, to get through it is a lot of exposure therapy. So like, you keep doing it and you find some things that work, and you figure out in these scenarios, like, how can you help yourself feel with your feet planted on the ground, and what cadence works for you. Back in the day, you would just get dragged places, or people would just show up at your house, or, we would live in more communal like situations. It'll be interesting to see what happens with all of that as we get more and more isolated. And I think the work from home piece, I think for folks who struggled with social anxiety, has really exacerbated that, because the less you go out and feel your social anxiety, in my experience, the more intense
Trump
it
is helping with that, asking federal workers to come back to
work. I think that was an attempt to fire everybody, but
something is going to help.
And I work from home, and I remember after COVID, because I had my baby during COVID, and going back out, I felt it the first like big event I went to. I was like, man, what is this? And I'm a pretty outgoing person, and I love to talk to new people, and I'm just like, there for it all. Like, any moment I'm like, let's talk. Like, what do you have to tell me? But I felt it that first 6 months when we came back out. And so it's a real claustrophobic experience.
So what did people do during COVID? Do you think more sex or less sex, or?
Oh God, COVID was a toss up. Yeah, that was really interesting.
So you think more sex, generally, or less? I know there are COVID babies.
I don't know if I could generalize. There were COVID babies coming out of it. Well, I think people moved and then figured out okay, this is.
And also, a lot of people separated because they had to start living together.
Well, that's what I'm thinking about, is like the people who were like having affairs and were like can no longer see their outlet.
Then now they're like, oh, should I have to live with you? Like, I'm out here.
I think it was a real toss up. I think first off, COVID was really stressful. I mean, for a lot of people, it was scary. It was stressful.
Yeah.
It brought back a lot of pieces, and so I think it strengthened some relationships for sure. It made people fall back in love. They felt really taken care of. They made babies, decided big life things. I think other people were like, fuck this, I'm out. I knew this shit was bad, and having to spend every day with you, which my work was, and my friends and my life were, So COVID was an interesting one. I think we'll be learning about all the things from COVID for years to come.
Yeah, I think you mentioned about porn in passing. So how does porn really affect men's sexuality and the turn on and issues, or maybe to the good?
Yeah, right. Right. So there's always, I am a believer that like everything has good qualities and negative qualities. Yeah. So the great thing about porn is that we're allowing people to see things and understand the way that things work. Because some of the people who come to see me, they're like, no, like, how do you get your penis inside of there? Like, where does my wife's legs go? Like, there's some real serious,
and these are like people who are married and all that?
Yeah. And they're like, no, like, we can't figure it out. Yeah. Like, so porn is great for that. Or, couples who've been together for a really long time, and they want to spice it up, and one person is sort of maybe more, less monogamous and wanting to like have other energy in the room, and the other person is like, no way, we can't bring other people in, but porn can be this gateway in. So, there's a lot of little places where porn can be really helpful. It can also expose you to fantasies that you maybe never would have found on your own, or would have taken you 20 years in your own head to find. Yeah. If it's out there and people are making a movie about it, there's people who are fantasizing about it.
Sure,
they're just everything people are fantasizing about.
Sci-fi comes before science, that's sort of porn comes before fantasy.
But the negative things come in if we go back to that balanced human sexuality model I was talking about. I put porn in between the intimacy and relationships and the fantasy category. And for some people, their only experience of sexuality is through porn. They only touch their bodies during porn. They don't have a relationship with somebody else. And so their whole world becomes this very small segment.
That you're doing only 1/3 of your model on that
But
particular
like
one,
not even the fantasy part. Like you're like in a sub category because when you're watching porn, you're not making your own fantasies. You're letting it take care of your fantasies for you. And also I put it completely on the opposite side of the erotic embodiment and sensations because you're typically not feeling your body during that.
Yeah.
Your brain is like off and you're just and
Yeah, what do you think about like, because if you're fantasizing, you're in your brain, not in your heart or body.
if you're fantasizing,
is that a problem?
But if you're fantasizing with your own brain, you can feel your body and your heart, actually. When we're watching something, we would have to put a lot of energy into that, truly. And most people don't in that visual space. Because most people, when they're fantasizing, they're actually closing their eyes.
Yeah.
And they're inside their body and they're feeling that energy.
It's almost like the same equivalent of giving kids TV and YouTube.
Right.
What it does to them versus when they
Very
are
much.
picturing themselves in nature and all of that.
Right.
Very different kind of kids you
Right.
get. So is there some sort of porn you recommend men watch, or they don't watch, or is there?
Yeah, I have like a porn list that like if people are like, do you have porn that you recommend? Like there's things. Yet I think normally where I start with people, if there's this question about like, should I stop watching porn or not, is like, let's stop watching it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Stop for a month and see, most likely your desire to masturbate tanks. Some people can't masturbate without it. And that's an indication that it's a problem. Not because porn is a problem, but because the use of porn has become a problem.
Is that mostly a male issue in terms of?
No, it's both. Absolutely.
Because men, what I've heard is men are more visual, so the whole porn caters to men. Is that true?
I think
or not
porn
really?
caters to the male gaze, and so it looks a lot like the male gaze. That's changing a lot.
Well, there's
lots
feminist
of people.
porn directors
Right,
these days,
absolutely,
and
right.
some cool ones. Yeah.
But what I would say is that both sexes can get caught up in using porn and overusing porn, and I talk about it as like it's overuse, and for some people, even once a year is too much for them because they end up down this rabbit hole of never being able to get off of it.
Yeah.
And then they lose the capacity to create their own fantasies in their own head, and then also to feel their bodies or to be in any other place.
Got it. What do you think is the relation between mental health and men's sexuality?
I mean, huge. I think the way we feel about ourselves on a deep internal space and the way that we understand life has a huge, there's a direct
So how much of
impact to
issues the
sexuality.
men who come to you are issues that are mental versus physical?
It's both. It's always both. I never hold it as one or the other, ever. I think we humans...
It originates in the mind, do you think, or it originates in the body generally?
I think there's a big debate right now in science about that. I think the latest research is saying it starts in the body and then goes to the brain. But
I would have thought otherwise because, everything starts in the mind generally and then...
they say that there's these memories that are located in the body and it happens and then it sends the message to the brain.
Okay.
I try not to tease out those pieces because I think that there's something about treating a person as a whole individual. And when I work with clients in my office, there's often I hold a container of like, we're both looking through our history and I'm looking through their history and understanding where are the blocks to freedom. Eroticism comes from feeling free. It comes from a spaciousness.
Yeah. It's creative energy, right?
Right.
So it's,
it is, truly. And
we are created from it.
We are literally all here because of it, born from it.
Yeah.
And looking at how we're stuck, how our glasses that we have on, how these different pieces are keeping us stuck is immensely important. And also learning new skills so that there's a pathway out and trying on new things. And when I think about confidence in the way that I work, I do a lot of games, exercises, things to help people stretch and try new stuff to get to know themselves in a new way. So we're not just stuck always mining the past, always mining the past, always mining the past. It's like we're putting the language that's used nowadays is like new neural networks down.
Neural pathways,
So we're looking at the unconscious and we're saying like, what's here, what's showing up? But we're also saying like, let's see how we can forge new pathways.
Yeah. Got it. So related to mental sort of health, how are men's upbringing affecting their sexuality in terms of sort of this related concepts being sort of the alpha male masculinity
Right.
affecting their sexuality either in a good or bad way, like do you see some of that playing into men's sexuality?
Well, I think it plays a lot into performance struggles for sure, or ability to be close. This goes back, I think, again to what a lot is modeled in the home. Like, how was the male figure in their house? What did they see as the male figure? Who is strong and competent, and what does that look like? And I mean, I think that's just our eroticism is completely interwoven with our sense of self.
Yeah.
And
like, for example, I grew up with this, I mean, like a lot of men, I think, where you couldn't cry. You're like, man up,
Right.
and then move on in life.
Right. Yeah.
Like
Holding emotions,
so then you're like
compartmentalize.
putting all those emotions buried deep down somewhere.
Right.
And I'm thinking that could affect your sexuality in some ways. I don't know, but the real results of this, but yeah.
Right. So then when we start to look at, if we go back to the balanced human sexuality model and we look at relationships, love, and intimacy, if there's a part inside of yourself that you've walled off and said, I can't touch that, I don't go there, I don't let people see that, then there's always going to be a block around how close you can feel with another person in your heart in that erotic space. And so it often does come back up. And couples hopefully are able to work through that, but sometimes they do need a lot of help. And there will be, with men who felt like they really had to shove emotions down, they'll hear from their partner. I don't know if you hear this from yours, but I just don't feel close to you. I feel like you're
you have
really
a wall coming up, or that's
right. You're shutting me out. Why won't you
I've
ever
heard
share
that
with
from
me? Yeah.
my partners in the past, where it's because and part of the reason is you have cordoned off that part.
Yeah,
because you don't feel safe
It's a
to share it
pattern.
with
It's a
anybody,
trance. Right.
Yeah. So related concept is, what do you think about the concept of, for sexuality of men, there being an alpha and beta?
It's interesting.
How true is that in your practice? And is that like a natural phenomenon? Is that more of a mental construct, or like, what do you think?
I was just listening to this beautiful, the guy who studied all the wolves when they got re-released in the
Yellowstone.
Sierras. Yeah, it was really interesting to talk about that. And they were saying that it was really misunderstood. Do you know the studies on it, actually? Have you read any?
No.
Oh, okay.
Tell me
What's
more.
really interesting is that they found that captivity led to this really... This is why people talk about these beta and alpha, was because of these wolf studies. And in captivity, there was these beta, alpha. But when they actually got out into the wilderness and had wolves wild, they didn't see the same patterns anymore. So it's funny that we just like extrapolated that that's how these things are. I think we're talking about masculine and feminine, and I think of it as like sperm or egg energy. It's this quality of and all of us are here because of that. Like literally we wouldn't exist if there wasn't a sperm or egg
because
inside
of
of all
an
of us.
alpha sperm who was taken by a egg.
Maybe an alpha, we don't know. We just like one that something that
but
went
we attribute
for it.
the sperm that fertilized the egg as alpha. In our pop culture, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Because they won out among other million sperms out there.
Sure. Yeah.
So you think that's so
fastest, best
fastest,
placed. I mean, there's so many
swimmer,
things.
whatever wins,
was
right?
closer to the front, happened to go to the left side. I mean, there's so many components.
Or maybe not the fastest, maybe the most convenient one who happened to the right place at the right time.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Who knows, right?
Or depending where the egg is in the body too. I mean, there's so many components.
Factors, yeah.
But the sperm is the goer, the doer, the make it happen.
Yeah.
And the egg is the waiter and the spaciousness. So when you think about feminine, the feminine is this spacious, I'm here, I'm holding space, I'm open, I'm waiting. Same as sex. Some of that energy.
But there is always I'm going to call it a selection process for female energies in the nature as well.
Right.
The reason I ask this question is also, like, I was in a safari in Ethiopia, and we were at a pond, and we saw a bunch of hippos. There were like at least like 16 hippos. And we were asking the guide, and he's like, oh yeah, there's one male and then probably 8 females and the kids. Right. And this is the alpha hippos territory. And there's a harem of hippos all the women are, all the female hippos are like getting protection from the male. And sometimes there's some young male who develops into
and then he gets
and
kicked
they
out, or he
challenge
fights.
they challenge the alpha. So the alpha male concept is prevalent in gorillas, in hippos. There are a lot of the animal kingdom it still applies to, where the alpha gets all the resources and all the females.
Well, so I think when I think about this topic, I think about like what is good sex? Because I think there's like getting access to sex, which is one thing.
Yeah.
And then there's like, what does it mean to have really, truly good sex? And what does good sex mean? Like for me, I know what it means. It means connectedness. It means freedom. It means openness. It means safety. It means like being able to just like let go and go to a place that I feel like nothing else matters.
Yeah.
But for other people, it may mean different
resources,
things.
maybe like other stuff associated with being a partner,
status,
or
there's so many things that it can mean. And so when I think about this piece of like alpha, I think, well, I've had sex with people, I guess, who would be considered alpha. Was that good sex? I don't know. Sometimes maybe, but sometimes no. Like it's not an indication that sex is going to be
sex is good. It's
great,
just a
or that they're having great sex. Like you mentioned earlier, something about these people who were so fit and like, but they had ED and like there's no way to say, like I think there's this assumption that like the alpha is having the best sexual experiences. And I think that's a huge societal misconception. Same with women. It's like there's this idea that like, I think we don't talk about alpha women the same way, but that like this particular look of women is having great sex.
Yeah.
But I can tell you from in my office, it has nothing to do with how you look.
Yeah.
Like great sex comes from a sense of connection to yourself, a freedom that you feel, an ability to show up and be present, to try on new things, to pick partners that are a good fit for you. I mean, there's all of these components.
I do want to talk about the women's sexuality and alpha, women alpha in a bit. So, that's a good perspective. So, what's your take on kind of sperm competition? Like, so the concept being that you're, as we mentioned, the you could call it the fastest sperm or the luckiest sperm, whatever. It fertilizes the egg. Right. Hence, you're considered in the common parlance that you came from that sperm that bettered the others, right? So in that sort of philosophical angle, and there's also this whole study about, so the sperm competition comes back to men are designed to propagate their sperm or their genes. So to the point that I've read this somewhere, that men's penis heads are shaped like mushrooms,
right, to pull the other sperm
scoop out the other sperm out.
Right,
and again, I mean, it's a theory. And so how much of that is really sort of, how much of male sexuality is driven by this whole gene propagation, sperm competition,
I think that there's some people who show up and they want to have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
And it's my experience of working with people is like, what does it mean to you and what do you think about it? So like if we were working together, I'd be like, well, what do you think about it? Like it doesn't really matter what I think about it. For you to find your connection to your eroticism fully and openly in a sustainable way, which is essentially what I'm hoping to do with all of my clients, is help them find that. It doesn't really have anything to do with these theories, I don't think. But if they're
what's your personal
impacting
take
you
on it? Like, forget about your clients. Like, what do you think?
I don't know. I just think it's all
It's all just a bunch of theories. But there's another line of thought about, and maybe you've seen this with some of your clients, that so this whole sperm competition.
Well, what I will say about it, which I think is maybe what you're getting at, is like, what do we do with people who feel competitive? What do we do with people who feel like they've got to win? What do we do with people who feel like if they don't win, they get rejected? So that's a fine line, because sometimes those people turn into perpetrators. Actually,
because they're like, I didn't get what I wanted.
I didn't get what I want. I'm going to get what I want.
Or nobody else should get what I didn't get, or something like that.
Right. That can veer far into other pathways.
The OJ territory here, but
there's many people who veer there. I'm going to ruin this person's life because they didn't give me what I want, or whatever. I mean, these are things that can happen.
Yeah.
And And I do think with the competition-like energy that there are people who are just sort of like born more competitive, people who are groomed to be more competitive. They're raised in environments where competition is a thing. You know, when you think about like, what is it that when we talk about alpha and we talk about like in men and we talk about women gravitating more towards the alpha, I think a lot more about what Esther Perel says, which is like, we want to see our partners in their shining, glowing selves. So the alpha tends to put themselves, if we're going to go with this alpha idea, like they tend to put themselves in situations where they're glowing. They're the life of the party. They're the one that's like doing these things. They're taking the risks. They're that doer. They're making things happen.
They have social capital that
right.
protects,
Social. I like that idea. Yeah, the social capital. That's a good one. Yeah, it's like they're taking that in and saying like, look at me, and they're attracting people. Where the people who are maybe less confident, a little shyer, they're holding back. They're stuck in social anxiety. They're not taking the risks to put themselves out there. And so I think that's why we've gotten as a society into this idea of like alpha is the way, because the alpha gets seen more.
And also
and gets what he wants.
We also have
and doesn't get distracted by rejection. Truly, like alpha gets rejected and he's like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna keep finding the next one." You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Where the quintessential nice guy gets rejected and he shuts down for 4 years.
Yeah. And it happens. And this whole amygdala, the flight or fight response, still, we still have that brain that
absolutely. There's no way around
still
that.
cares about why do women like taller men? Apparently, I read the study recently about back in the savannas of Africa why did the monkeys evolve into chimpanzees and then further gorillas? They could stand on 2 feet, so they could stand up and look far into the savannah to see predators coming. So the primate who stood tallest could protect the clan better. So the taller
there's some
men
unconscious
or
call to
taller
it.
chimp got the thing, right? And these are hardwired into our brains as a woman,
maybe,
probably.
I don't know.
Right?
I mean, maybe they are. I think people are
even
looking
like
for a
very
lot
evolved
of things.
feminists I talk to, they sometimes tell, I mean, sure, but somehow my only criteria is that the guy should be taller than me.
That's funny. My husband's shorter than me. So.
Well, you're an evolved human being, I should say, but I've heard this like 90% of the time.
Right. So I talk about it as like looks preference. I think that I think about it more as looks preference, and different people's turn-ons are looks preferences in there or not. I actually don't have a looks preference. Like my arousal is much more related to connection and intellect than it is to like how someone specifically looks. But I've worked with so many clients where they're like, I'm only turned on by this particular body type. And it's just a preference. It's almost like a kink. And I think, again, we need to stop judging people and saying, it's like also like when we talk about cock size, which we didn't address here today, but maybe we should. It's do all women want a bigger cock? The answer to that is no. No. Some women actually would prefer a much smaller cock, actually. Like, bigger is not always better.
Sometimes,
Yes, it hurts. It takes a long time to get hard. There's a lot of foreplay that's needed. Some women just don't like that feeling of being filled up. Like, so, it's like...
a lot of that. It's not one size fits all.
Some women do care. And so if you feel like you have a smaller cock and you're with someone who does care, you're a bad fit. Like, there's just no way around that.
If you look at,
and if you're shorter and you're with someone who wants a taller man or whatever, it's just a bad fit. You're not going to be for everybody.
Some women who like short kings, or like whatever they call it,
Yeah, right.
We
all
right
have
for
preferences.
So in terms of,
But that comes back to that rejection piece of like, I can't be rejected by everyone. Everyone has to accept me, which is not the case. Yeah.
You have God complex or goddess complex at that in that instance, right? So coming back to sperm competition, like I've heard some anecdotal stories from some men that say, and I believe this is for sperm competition playing a part in this, where, hey, when I go to a bar or a club, I'm with my girlfriend or my wife or partner, and they get hit on by other men, it turns me on. Mm-hmm. And I think that's sperm competition, because you have people who are trying to, in a raw sense, fertilize that egg. And I am now feel more competitive. My hormones are raging, and I wanna knock that egg up. You know what I mean? Like I thought it was an interesting perspective.
I think it could be. I think it definitely could be true for some people that they have this idea around making babies. That is a really huge part. I think when my husband and I decided we wanted to have a baby, which was a very conscious decision, we're like, we're going to have a baby. I suddenly was like, I never want to have sex. This is not sexy.
Yeah. I hear you.
Getting knocked up, I was like, oh man, this feels fucking serious.
Oh, this is after you got knocked up? Or
this is like when we're like, we're going to try.
Ah.
And he's like, like, I told you like 3 weeks ago because I was ready. I knew I was ready. I told him, let me know when you're ready. And he's like, I told you I was ready. And like, you've kind of been a little distant and cold, And I was like, it's just not sexy to me.
Yeah.
Like the idea of getting knocked up is there's like nothing about it that feels like, I want that. Like there was just no part of me that was like, this feels like something that would turn me on. So I think.
Did he have the same feeling, or was it different for him? Or?
It was really different from him. Okay. He's much more emotionally, spiritually vulnerable, open. He thought it was like the most beautiful thing in the world. I felt
similar to what you felt.
Right. So you wouldn't be a sperm competition person either, because you'd be like, God, the idea of getting someone pregnant is not sexy. So I think it just depends. We're such complex creatures, truly.
Yeah.
I think the competition thing could be like, other people think my wife is pretty and I'm a winner. Like,
exactly. So that's just a little bit of that feeling. Or like I'm under a little bit of
my
threat.
Partner with someone else, and that's sexy. I mean, there could be so many components. It's like fetishes. It's like why people have a particular fetish has a deep, deep meaning to it, but they're always different.
Maybe it's rooted in some childhood trauma. Who knows, right? Some of these
fetishes are normally rooted in childhood trauma.
So coming to the last part of the segment, men's segment here, what are some common fantasies you hear from men,
Are we bursting bubbles here too?
Yeah, let's do it.
Burst some bubbles. This is my favorite bubble
we're
to
in
burst.
San Francisco, and then Bay Area, we talk about everything.
That's right, we do. Well, no, I mean, it's like I'm like the Debbie Downer of the fantasy land, I feel like these days, because I feel like I just keep delivering the Debbie Downer news. But so I think the most common fantasies that men have, and again, we're overgeneralizing here, but is that like group sex or multiple women. I think men feel like many men run into a scarcity place. There's not enough for me. Nobody really wants me. The desire is not coming my way. And there's this idea of like, if I can get two women or two women are into me, like it will help validate, turn me on. I'll feel this like deep sense of want, desire, all these
you
things.
mean at the same time or like different
At the same time, threesomes. Okay. Threesomes, group sex.
Got it.
I know what I normally say to clients though is like, it's a wonderful fantasy, like great, like we'll talk about it, we'll move through all these different things. And for people who are really starting to talk about wanting to explore it, I normally say like 1 in 10 or 20 threesome experiences are going to be great, because we're talking about multiple people here. This is not a fantasy person.
It's like 3 different relationships you got to worry about. Huh?
It's literally, and in a threesome, it's normally like 2-on-1. Yeah. Because it's like, there's so many nuances and bumbles and like things
unless
that
all
go
of them
back
are into each other or whatever, which is a different
but even if they are, the energy so like the best experiences will be everybody's equally into each other, everybody's great at sharing space, everybody can pay attention and listen and move flowingly into different experiences. It's very rare.
I know,
it's very rare. Even figuring out one person is hard enough. To figure out another energy because it's all these things. So I normally I hate to be the buster of that, but I feel like it's important to keep people in reality with all of these things. Is like the fantasy is always going to be better in your head, and try it, do it, go for it. If you have an opportunity or if you're really into it, let's do it.
So other than group threesome, what else?
I would say that's like sort of the predominant thing is like the group threesome thing that I hear the most. But other than that, I think it's more men fantasizing about their partner, somebody really, really wanting them, feeling desired, deeply desired, like that person's coming towards them, seeing them across the room, having to have them. I think that that's a deep fantasy for many, many people and men.
Well, on that note, we'll end our first segment on men. We'll come back after a break.
Perfect.
Welcome to our second segment of our conversation with Keeley Rankin today on Ocio Show with Rahul. So, Keeley, we talked about men in our first segment. We're going to talk about women
Let's
in
talk
our
about
second
women.
segment. So, who are the women who come to seek your help? So you're a sex therapist and relationship intimacy coach. Single, married, divorced, new mothers, like who comes?
All of the above. All of the above. So I would say predominantly the women who come to see me are people who either fall into the category of like, sex has always been a mystery. Like, I don't understand it. I don't feel comfortable with it. I don't know what the big deal is. I think I'm doing it wrong. I think I'm missing something. Or I feel like I know a lot about sex and I've had a lot of really good experiences, but I don't know how to bring those into relationship now. Like either they're in relationship and they're trying to bring their partner out and they don't know what to do, or they're trying to move from a sexual person that's just been having more casual sex into relationship and trying to bring those two things together. So.
Got it. Okay, so all the above. So I'm one category, particularly new mothers. I'm guessing they could seek help post childbirth. You think it's the case of hormones playing back, or they not feeling sexy, or is it like physiological changes generally, or what do you think?
I mean, having gone through that very recently, all of the above.
Yeah.
My experience of working with people, my experience of watching my friends move through it, of moving through it, I think it's really different for everybody. I think for some people, it's just this huge monumental life change, not sleeping at night, the pressure that they feel having to sort through all these different things they didn't have to before. For others, it's the changes in their bodies, the body looking different. For some, it's not feeling supported by their partner or seeing their partner in a different light. And then there's this huge like hormonal shift and change. So I think it would be really hard to say exactly what is happening with new moms, but a lot of things is happening with them.
Because I've heard that, hey, my body is not my body before. Looks different.
Yeah.
I don't feel sexy anymore.
I've
And
definitely
that's
struggled with
probably
that.
like 80% of my... Because I don't feel sexy and I don't know how my partner would find me sexy, sort of thing, right? So,
right, and I don't feel sexy, so I'm not spending my time focusing in that erotic space.
yeah, because I have enough to focus on my baby and all of that.
You're really, my kiddo is about to be 4 when we're filming this. He'll be 4 in August. But I feel like I'm sort of just coming out of this space where like every moment of my breathing, waking time around him that's not at work isn't spoken for. Like there's some space to breathe for myself. And I think people do different things with that. For some people, it's a non-issue. Like they'll just float into eroticism. They'll float into these spaces. And for other people, it just looks really, really different.
Yeah.
So I think it's not stereotyping like this is what's going to happen when you have a baby. Like, because that's not true. Actually, like different people do totally different things. For some people, that erotic space and that connection is like what connects them to their past, and they gravitate towards it like, chocolate. And for other people, they're like, I just can't right now. I don't have the time for it. It's always felt like a burden, and it's an even bigger burden now.
Yeah, now I have an excuse to actually
get out of it,
take care of the kids or whatever, right? So, yeah. And what do you think of a lot of women sometimes don't discover their sexual selves well into 20s or
later.
So are there women who come to you, other than the mothers, of course, that's an issue, to discover their erotic selves later in their life or whatever?
Always.
Yeah. And what do you think is the reason for that? Is that because of societal shame or trauma or like
right? So
fear of
absolutely
pregnancy?
Trauma. I think the current statistics is 1 in 4 women have experienced sexual abuse, and so there's a huge rampant amount of trauma. And I think what's oftentimes true is that women don't even know that they've been through an abusive situation because it's so prevalent in our society. That there's a discovery of like, wow, that was a really traumatic experience and that really changed me going forward. again, we talked about this in the previous segment. I think most of us need some help and support around our sexuality. Women are sort of told, look sexy, but don't be sexy. So there's this disconnection that happens. There's also, with the influx of people watching porn and all of these pieces, there's this idea of like, that's what's going to turn you on, is what's seen in these screens, and that's what people are bringing. And oftentimes that's not the case. So there's just not a lot of places for people to turn to figure out like what's actually pleasurable. And when you're told a message your whole life, be sexy, but don't be connected to your eroticism. Don't follow the impulses that you have to go towards that person that you're turned on by. Hold back because they might think you're a slut or you're moving too fast. I mean, there's all of these checks that women are making on a consistent basis, and it floods into how they actually express themselves in the bedroom, because they're in this place of like, but I shouldn't. I should hold myself back, and it's really unconscious in many
societal
regards.
subconscious bias, right? So how much? So you talked about slut shaming a little bit.
Right.
How much of slut shaming does play a part in women sort of not embracing their own sexuality?
Right. Everybody's really different. I think that relationship with how much people care about what other people think or what they think that's going to get them. Some women are catatonic from it. They are not functioning at all because they're so afraid of that happening. And others are like, yeah, that's there, but it doesn't impact me that much.
So that me growing up in India in like 80s and 90s, there's this whole concept you see in movies and all that. It's slightly different from here. Virginity was like a prized possession for a woman growing up.
Yeah.
But then a lot of guys wanted a sexually adventurous woman, but also a virgin. So like, okay, where do you draw that line between, experience and, all of this? Huh?
Right. And culturally or religiously, when I've worked with people who were like, well, I was told I would get married and all of this stuff would just work. Yeah. And there's so much confusion and so much letdown, and you've been holding things back. And so I think it's like, if you're like 14 and 15 and you're like just coming of age and learning about your sexuality and you get married, then it's sort of like, okay, that feels a little bit different. But if you've been holding back or learning all these societal things, and now you're in your mid-20s and suddenly you're like, okay, we're married now, we have to figure it out. Yeah, a lot of people don't figure it out. And then they don't talk about it and they keep it private. And it just ends up being this thing that no one ever talks about in the relationship.
You bottle up all that sexual energy, and then you don't know where it goes when you're in your 20s and all that, right? Yeah. Right. And then post-slut shaming, with respect to fears, what are some fears that you see women come to you or in general in society? Well, other than, of course, the fear of pregnancy, which,
that's a real one.
That's a real one.
That's actually, a big one for some people, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that most women are, and we talked a little bit about this in regards to having children, is body image. I'm not thin enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not curvy enough. I think a surprising one for a lot of men is like, I smell bad. Like, I'm not going to let my partner eat me out because I smell bad. I have to shower before they do, or like I could never let someone do that. So there's this worry or this concern that on some level, like their physical human body is just not enough. There's also a fear of like, they don't know, like, I don't know what I'm doing. So there's the fear of like, I'll be a slut if I have sex too soon, or I give it away too soon, or that whole idea of like the cow and the milk or whatever that thing is. It's like, you won't buy it or whatnot.
Why buy a cow when you can have milk or something?
Right. But I think like later in relationships, how that shows up is this piece of like, am I able to really be myself and relax into this piece? So
yeah, and so that's that fear sort of translates to insecurities, and then you abstain from it, or like you're like,
pull back,
I'm not,
shut down, right?
And then that, of course, translates to like blame on their partner as well. Oh, you always think about sex. So like, and
then you can see that one. Yeah.
Right. Like it's almost defense mechanism in some ways. Yeah.
There's also a lot of concern though. I think of like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, so when you're told don't be this certain way, you shut down a lot of people shut down the creativity of like, I would do that and I would do this and I would let myself think about that.
Because you don't even think about that.
Yeah. Because you tell yourself like, don't go there.
Yeah.
And so then suddenly now you're in a relationship and you're supposed to be erotic, but you don't actually know what you're doing, and you don't trust yourself, and you don't have any skills.
Yeah.
And even if someone tries to like talk to you about it, you're like, but how do you actually do that? Like,
So I've read some old philosophical texts. I forget where it was, Greece or from Eastern religions, that they talk about women's sexuality being like a tiger out of a bag, so a cage. So you want to keep that tiger in a cage, because it's almost like, women get the power of their sexuality in terms of the multiple orgasms and all of that.
yeah.
You
It's
like
big.
that. It's almost like shark tasted its blood,
Yeah.
and now it wants blood everywhere,
Right.
and that becomes a very chaotic
Right.
society. From a societal angle on this.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an interesting perspective. One of my favorite books is it's called The Contrarian History to Marriage, and she talks about like why sex and marriage and all these things got looped in together, which hooray is the Catholic Church, and money, really, control, money, power, who could get married and
Property.
who could procreate, and if you were born. You could only be married in the Catholic Church if you agreed to be Catholic, and then if you couldn't have sex until marriage. I mean, there's all these things that happen because of Catholicism and the way that it infiltrated through.
Yeah, I want to talk about Catholic Church a little bit, but before that, on the same note, like I thought it was interesting. Dan
Savage's
Savage
book.
is one of the book about monogamy. She introduces that in some book, I think. Why do we always have last names like Smith or Porter, or like it almost always it comes from men's family lines,
Right? Yeah.
And there's a whole book about why, right?
Yeah.
So of course this patriarchy, you can make it a patriarchy. Back in the day, if a child came from your belly or from you, that child is yours.
Right.
But there was no paternity test back in the day to actually know whether the child was the man's.
Right.
So then if the man gave his family's last name, it meant that the kid was yours. So in a way, a lot of the patriarchal systems are tied to like the sexuality and like sort of the property rights and all of that.
But what's so interesting is my husband and I went to Nepal when we got engaged, and we were on the Tibetan Nepal border right there, going through Manaslu, and the last bigger village that we were in, the death rate was so high just for people in general that women married multiple men. Women had like 4 to 5 husbands actually, and so when a baby was born, all of those men took care of that baby, and you never knew who it was because so many people died, and actually the infant mortality rate was shockingly high because they didn't have clean water and things. But I mean, I think it is a product of society, like how we set up these things of procreation and what we think about it. So, there's this whole idea of like, oh, men want to have all these women as a harem, but in societies
a lot of
where
the other examples,
men are going out all the time and just disappearing and never coming home.
So I come from a matriarchal society back in where I grew up in India. And I remember stories of my great-grandmother. So the property used to be passed on with the daughters. So instead of the older male child. And then, so she used to have what we call sambandhams, which is almost like a temporary relationship with a man. And she would have maybe kids with that man.
Right.
And then when she's done with the man, she used to put his belongings outside the home. And then he moved on.
Yeah.
And then so my great-grandmother had, I think, kids from like 2 or 3 men. And we are all like, the second cousins are all like close to each other. So it was like a matriarchal different system where the women had the power of property.
Right.
And
who has property? That's a big one.
It was interesting. So coming back to the Catholic sort of thing, have you heard from especially some Christian women about Catholic guilt?
Oh gosh, yeah.
And how much of
men and
guilt
women.
does that do play a part in women's sexuality in particular, and especially related to virginity and abstinence and all that?
Right. Yeah, I took a training once, and there was a guy who was talking about like, let's stop calling it virginity and talk about it as like a coming out, your coming out date. And I really loved that because it was like sort of this like celebration of like stepping into this whole new space of the way humans interact versus like losing something, losing the virginity.
Something, you have to keep it, huh?
Right. Yeah. If there's something to keep. And the reality is like some women don't have a hymen.
Yeah.
So there's like the hymen has to be intact for that blood to happen, which is part of this virginity. But I can't remember what percentage of it is women. I think it's like as high as like 20 or 30 don't actually aren't born with a hymen. So it's like,
or maybe lose it during childhood or whatever.
It's riding a bike or riding a horse or all of these things. Like they just it's not intact in that way. But I think the Catholic guilt is really profound for a lot of people. I think when you're saturated in a culture that says you're wrong or bad for thinking about these things, or when you get sent to churches and after school programs and schools that say you have to think in this very specific way about sex, especially I think going through high school during that puberty phase where there's so many hormones running through the body that's just like, it's nuts, really. And if you're told like you can't masturbate because that's wrong and bad. You can't think these thoughts, they're impure. You can't act on these places. Everything goes inside. And it's my belief is like those things that we don't actually feel into, those things that we push aside, they come back up in really convoluted ways. We think the whole Catholic Church in general, what we know about all of the pedophilia that is in there, and what
could be attributed to this, huh? I mean, I'm guessing.
I think there's just no way around it. It's like when you try to shove something away and down, it's going to come back up in a funny way.
You just can't have sex with women, but all the others are fair game.
Well, it just gets really complicated. I think about the Japanese culture. It's this very nice overemphasis on politeness, and then we get this really interesting,
depraved,
shadowy. Kinky, unique space. It's like it's going to come out one way or another.
Way or the other. Yeah.
And so that's what's true about people who experience these really religious upbringings is that they tend to vacillate more into a kinky space. And that they really, when they let themselves feel into what they want, there's this wonderful, playful, creative, sexy, kinky, and taboo area that opens up for them if they let themselves.
Yeah. And these, I've even heard some of my Catholic people who are graced with a Catholic upbringing say, they're very religious, go to church and all that, but, of course, they try to be abstinent until they got married. But apparently, like, anal sex was okay.
Right, that wasn't your virginity. Yeah, that was a big thing in our high school, too. That was not
okay, that was like the loophole,
Yeah.
Loophole, and then
it's not sex if it's, there was a funny thing of, like, sex is penis in vagina intercourse, and all these other things weren't sex, and which also fucked everybody, because the reality is sex is so many things. It's not just intercourse. It is so much.
God's loopholes. And then there's a Mormon church. There's another one I read about recently. It's called, I forget the name. If you put penis in vagina and not move, it's called placing. No, not placing. I forget the name. I'll remember it later. But it's called docking or something.
Oh my goodness! Right,
you
just
that's
stay.
A loophole in the in the church. I mean, apparently, like people, do that. I'll tag.
But I think it goes back to our earlier conversation of like what kind of education are we giving people? Because young people, first of all, children are erotic beings.
Yeah.
Like we have sonograms of wombed children at 20 weeks masturbating. Like these things, these are our bodies, and they create pleasures, and they have nerve endings. And when we're connected to our bodies, there's things that naturally occur. And the eroticism of a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, they look different. Or, if we go back further, they look different than an adult, but they are erotic.
Yeah.
But when we start to see things that look like adult eroticism, we know typically that's sexual trauma, that there's been abuse perpetrated by an older person on them, because the eroticism of a young person looks very different than the eroticism of a person who's gone through puberty and had multiple sexual experiences.
Yeah, interesting. There's so much we can talk about the sexual stuff coming out of the repressed Christian mind. Yeah. What topics do women come to you with respect to, especially when they're hitting menopause?
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
And I've heard that during menopause, the sex drive could like go up sometimes, go down.
Right.
It's, what do you think?
So first off, I'll say I'm not an expert in that space. And there are definitely people who are becoming strong experts in that field. So the amount of people I've worked with around that is minimal. I myself have not gone through it yet. So I may, again, this might be a conversation for 10 years from now. We come back and talk about it. I imagine, though, it's just deeply unique how you feel. When you're pregnant, you get these different hormones. People do different things with them. And when the baby's gone, you give birth or you move back to just your singular body, different things happen. Like I know for me, after I gave birth, like I felt so turned on for like 2 or 3 months. My husband was like, what is going on? We had like this newborn. We're supposed to like not be sexual at all. And I was just like, I felt voracious. And I think honestly, being pregnant was really hard for my body. I didn't my body didn't respond well to those hormones. And when the baby was finally gone, I was like, oh, thank God. Like, this is great. Like back to myself. But I think people do really, really different things. And I remember when I went back in after the baby was born and I saw my OBG, we were talking about it. She's like, you just never know, like where people get depressed or, have all of these different experiences. And I imagine it's very, very similar as you move through menopause. I think in menopause, predominantly, you look a lot different because you're starting to lose hormones. So your skin changes, your body changes. So if you were a person that was really worried about self-conscious about your look and your body and having perky boobs and a perky butt, and suddenly you've lost that, or your turn on was from the male gaze and walking down the street and getting a lot of attention, and that has shifted, I could see it really impacting.
I've seen that. I've heard that, especially since you're not ovulating anymore, that whole desire cycle goes away for some people.
Waves. Right.
And for some people, it increases because they don't have any fear of getting pregnant anymore. So it's like
right, and it's just the relationship with their body and their pleasure versus like the outside external value, right? Like I'm valuable because I can offer pregnancy to someone. Like that's sometimes what's in there for people. Like I'm this statue that could give birth, and people want me, and that's my value.
Fountain of fertility.
Right. And when that transitions, for some people, there is a deep grieving and loss around that.
On a related topic, what does trauma do to women's sexuality, and what kind of trauma do you see them come through, and how does that affect, and how do people get out of it?
Well, I think at first I would just want a blanket statement say men are not separated from this conversation. We didn't talk about it with men, but there is a lot of trauma that's not reported that we stumble upon. And in my work with men, like there's sometimes where I'm like, that experience
it's considered trauma if it happened to a woman.
Right. And so I think there is an underreporting of trauma. I think men are told that they're supposed to want every sexual experience, and that's not true. It's not true.
There's good and bad experiences that you're, and also like not so.
And so trauma is a whole experience that people move through, and it does impact women a lot because there is a lot of sexual abuse against women. And I guess the blanket statement would be that oftentimes it shuts women down to long-term intimacy and closeness.
Because they're like, once the trust is lost, I don't trust anyone anymore.
The body just doesn't trust. The body says something's not right here. The system we're talking about, which is the fight, flight, freeze nervous system, fawn. It's like, what does the actual body do when presented with an experience again? And when we look at trauma, we are looking at what's called flashbacks. So how are people going back into those experiences and reliving them? And when there's been sexual trauma, sexual abuse, and the body goes back into those feeling sensations, and it triggers that memory and it triggers that pathway, suddenly you're no longer just you walking through the world. You're actually you at that traumatized experience, reliving it again. So it's a long process. People definitely work through it. They can learn how to be with that and see that this is not the experience where abuse had happened and move forward.
Do they generally work with like a therapist or somebody like a sex coach on these kind of trauma issues?
Both. I would say, sometimes I'm working with people and I say like, let's help you, like, let's send you to see a trauma specialist. Other times I'm the referral after the trauma therapist, where it's like, we've worked on all these pieces around this person's trauma, but the sexuality piece is still here and it's not moving. So how do we move through sexual trauma? Because when we were talking about the early ejaculation, we were talking about how arousal impacts. The same thing happens to women. As arousal builds, then it can re-trigger that place of the sexual trauma. So.
Well, let's talk about a fun topic.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So one that separates men from women, sexuality, multiple orgasms.
Yeah.
So how common is it? Is it as universal as it sounds to be? And then do people have issues with having multiple orgasms as a woman?
People have issues with having one orgasm.
Yeah. But is it, would I, if I say the statement that all women are multi-orgasmic?
No, they're not.
Majority of women are multi-orgasmic. Would you agree?
Some are. Yeah. It's a preference thing. Some men, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but when you ejaculate, some men get a very sensitive cock. Like, no one can touch it. Yeah. Nobody, just don't.
Touch me not, yeah.
Yeah. And other people, it's like they don't have that. They're like, I could just keep going, whatever. There's no different in sensations. So, and also the release of hormones and chemicals that run after an orgasm are very different for different people. So some men, they orgasm and they're like, don't touch me for 48 hours. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm going to go take a nap. And other people come and they're like, I'm ready for a 5K. Let's do this again in 2 minutes. And so again, it's this, everybody is so different. And what's beautiful and wonderful about women is that they do have this capacity to keep going and to explore more. And, for some women, like that, it's like an intro orgasm into like many more. And I think it's definitely something I encourage everyone to try on and explore and see what's possible. But for some people, they know.
Yeah, if you have a superpower compared to men, that's one thing I'm jealous of. Like, do it,
Right.
Try it at least to see if you have it or not.
But I just want to say, there's plenty of women who enjoy sex and orgasm or not, because I think there can be, when we start talking about multiple orgasms and we start talking about male performance stuff, there's this over focus on the orgasm and we lose the emphasis of like the whole experience is an experience. We don't just focus on the end of the song. It's the whole song is beautiful.
But can the song, I'm not doing an analogy, can there be good sex and not have an orgasm, still considered good
100%.
sex?
100%.
For men, for women?
Both. And if you, interestingly enough, if you ask people what their peak erotic experience is, not the whole thing, but just like the moments, it's very rarely the orgasm. Very, very rarely someone says like, oh, it was this orgasm that happened in these circumstances that was my peak experience. It's normally like there was this look, there was this exchange, there was this way I felt, there was this.
But don't you feel people feel incomplete if they're like all the time just having great travel story and never reaching the destination?
I think the folks who are not able to reach orgasm feel like they're missing out on something.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a feeling of like something's wrong.
But it's not like you don't need it all the time, but like generally speaking, I don't know, 80-90% of the time it's good to reach a destination.
I think people like the experience of, most people, again, this is an overgeneralization, most people like the experience of orgasm, and many people would say their top 3 reasons that they go into an erotic experience is to have an orgasm. But that's something you would want to check out with your partner. Like, why do you want to have sex? Like, what do you appreciate about it? And for some people, orgasm isn't really on there. Those people normally orgasm really easily and quickly and fast, and it's like no big deal. Like women that like, or like, I go for the closeness and I go for the care and I go
very fast.
Right. Those women are often just orgasming really easily and fast. And so it's like a non-issue. They're just like in and out, they're on that scale, arousal
Do you think there's
curve,
something similar for women like early ejaculation?
Absolutely. But we just don't call it that.
Okay, so it's like, what is that?
Yeah, they just like come really quickly, really easily. It's like,
is there a lot of women who do that, or just very few?
I think it's slightly less common. Yeah.
So it's more on the other side, where it's delayed delayed orgasms for
Absolutely,
women.
yeah. Well, I
generally.
think that the thing about early ejaculation is that it's seen as a problem because when a man ejaculates, a chemical is released that removes that the blood comes out of the cock, and they can't have sex again for a while. There's the fraction period. When a woman orgasms,
That's not the case, yeah.
not typically. Well, it doesn't
Because if you have
have
multiple
to be.
orgasms, you can go again.
You just
so,
keep going.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a different, men coming early and women
So
coming
it's a
early are different.
non-issue,
Yeah.
and then you just learn to be in your body in a different way versus the panic of like, fuck, I shot my load. What's going to happen now? What's she going to think? What am I going to do? What's the answer
because
here?
for men, the refractory periods could be very long sometimes.
They can be.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if you get stuck in shame and worried about
Yeah.
what does she think, and I'm letting her down, and I didn't last in
Yeah.
bed. I'm not a man because I can't last. Right. All of those
But
things.
on that note, on multiple orgasms, some people, I mean, I've heard that if you, let's say, have a clitoral orgasm versus maybe a G-spot
G-spot or
orgasm,
cervical, right.
It doesn't have to be that sensitive. It could like alternate.
Everybody's
and then,
bodies are
you
so
know,
different, right?
Yeah.
So, we talk about these three predominantly different orgasms, and we should add our asshole in there too, because there's the clitoral, which is external.
Is that for women or just for men? Because the prostate
Both.
orgasms. Okay.
Yeah, both
But because women
too.
doesn't have a prostate, do you think they can have an anal orgasm?
Well, it would be technically the nerve endings in the ass go into the clitoris. So the clitoris ends down in the asshole. So that's the
Interesting.
piece.
Okay.
So that's why it normally gets left out because it's
Yeah.
like connected to the clitoris. But the reality is what we found out with science in the last 10 years, it's all related to clitoris. Like it's all the clitoral orgasm
yeah.
is just coming from different places.
Sure. But
So,
for men, it's different, I think, right? If you
Yeah,
'cause
men is
could
different. They have
have
prostate. It's a
prostate
prostate
orgasms,
orgasm.
very different
Very
from
different.
penile
Yes.
orgasms, right? So
Yes. But men can have prostate orgasms without even having ejaculation.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I mean, there's a lot
okay.
of things that can happen in those situations. So, I think when we talk about like what type of orgasm people are having, I normally want to know exactly where this is coming from. Like, are they curious about their own pleasure, or are they feeling pressure to find a particular orgasm? The conversations of like clitoral versus internal orgasms often happen because someone's like, I'm not coming right. I should orgasm from intercourse, which is like, it's just, why? Who made that rule up? Like, what does that even mean? Like, who
well,
came
it's a
up with
desire
that?
on my wish list, but it's
Sure.
not necessary. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like I'd also love to eat pizza every day
Yeah.
and never get fat, but that's like not possible. So,
Yeah. And so if women who are watching this, who are not multi-orgasmic,
Right.
can they learn to be multi-orgasmic?
Sure, if they want to. I think everybody
Or is it more of a
can.
physiology that you either have it or
Well,
not?
normally what I say about like every woman could be multi-orgasmic. It just depends on what are we talking about timing wise. So
I mean, look in a span of like, let's say an hour, right? I mean,
Yeah. Right.
regular ass
Absolutely.
session.
Yeah, I think absolutely.
Okay.
It is different, I think, for women than men in terms of men do have a chemical hormone that is released
Yeah.
that creates this
Creates
refraction
that.
period.
Yeah.
That it's like, and there has to be a rebuild up of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Of the sperm. For women, we don't. There's
you
not
don't
that
have
same
that,
thing,
yeah.
but it's also a question of like what's in their mind, because we were talking about like the brain is the biggest sex organ. It's like,
Yeah.
is their mind still in it?
Yeah.
So if they
Are
want
they
to,
engaged
yes.
enough or are
Right.
they turned on enough?
Do they
Yeah.
want to do something else, or do they want to stay
Yeah.
here? Yeah.
Okay. Now, going back to our society today, when women have more rights, they are in a very good financial position. They're
We
earning
can vote.
more.
We can own property.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So you're being in a man's world.
Mm.
How is that affecting sexuality
Yeah,
for
interesting.
women and men?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I love that question.
Do you think that's your women being more masculine is sort of?
I think the question
being-
would be, how are women's connection to their masculine energy impacting men?
Well, that's a very interesting question because I've heard anecdotally that a lot of men, when they feel that their women is doing a lot more of the stuff they used to do, is feeling emasculated,
right.
and hence lessening their turn on or desire. And I've heard the other way too, where it's more like, hey, I feel like I'm wearing pants in the marriage or relationship or whatever situationship, and then that's reducing how I look at my men. You think we should go back to traditional way society
Jesus,
was?
no,
or?
absolutely not. 100%. You're never going to catch me saying I think we should go back. You know, these are nuanced places, because I think we have to look at when someone says, I feel emasculated because my partner's making
earning
as much
more, or
money
like,
as me, or
or
more
like
money
as
than me.
much, or whatever.
I think that there's some inquiry into why. Like, what's happening for you? What happens? What do you feel? Like, really, truly, in a compassionate and caring way. Like, what do you feel? What does it bring up? For some people, it's like, this is what I want. I want to feel like the provider. I've been told my whole life I'm supposed to be the provider, and now I'm not, and I don't know where to place that.
Yeah.
But if you grew up in a society like your grandma, and you said to someone, you have to be the provider and own the house, that person would be like, what? I can't do it. So, it's these interesting things of like, we're in a changing time. And I think I'm a woman, and I have a business that I run that I wouldn't have been able to 20, 30, 40 years ago. I do sit a lot in my masculine energy. I always have.
Yeah.
And it's not for every man, but
has that
okay,
affected your sexuality in some ways? You being in that masculine? Because sometimes I've heard from women saying, hey, I'm in a man's world sometimes doing all these things. I want to feel more feminine. I don't feel sexy enough.
The cutting off from the feminine energy in order to fit into. Right. So I think of that more as like, there's an innate way of being that someone's shutting down from. So it's the same as what we talked about, actually, where you felt like as a child you had to cut your tears because it wasn't okay. So it's that same thing. It's like, there's an innate way I want to be, but I have to cut that to fit in. So I could see absolutely, in my chosen field, like the feminine and masculine can easily mix together. There's no one telling me I have to be more masculine. But I could see if I felt like I have to play this role and put aside a part of myself because there's no room for my femininity here, or I have to show this particular style. I could see, anytime we're putting ourselves aside, we're getting further and further and further from that.
Yeah, there's an interesting statistics I read from a divorce lawyer that said that if in a relationship, if, both are, let's say the man is the provider and there is a chance, again, I'm equating divorce to success of sexuality and relationships and all that. Like, if the woman loses her career or position, there's a pretty good chance that the marriage or relationship will survive.
Right, but the man loses.
And the man loses. And, the woman is making money, but there's like 80-90% chance of divorce or being separate ways.
Yeah.
So I question sometimes that even those the so-called modern feminist, progressive women still have that amygdala that says, I want to be with the man who's a provider.
Right. Or are we in a changing time where people don't know where to put that yet?
Yeah, because we were always taught that we want to be progressive, but our brain belongs to,
whatever society
17th century.
Well, our brain belongs to the society we grew up in. Right. So it's the society that we're surrounded by, and what I think it's less of like we're preconditioned to these things as much as like what is the field that we know as we are
the same thing.
I think Kamala Harris's husband did a great job of that.
Well, kudos to him.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where what is not celebrated doesn't get
and we don't have role models yet. I think
know?
We don't have role models, and that's why I think of Kamala Harris's husband, because he let go of his career to go and support her and stand beside her. And when you see their energy, there's no part of him that resents that. Like he's extremely proud of her. You can tell, you can feel it. Like they're, that or he's like a great actor, but I think genuinely he feels this pride of being, and he doesn't see himself as a less masculine man for supporting her.
And I do see sometimes Kamala Harris back when she was vice president, in some instances propping up his masculinity a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe because that's age and she grew up in as well, right? So it's yeah.
But I think that I mean, the masculine feminine is a really interesting thing. Like, is it to say that, you know, everyone has to be equal? Like, I have to sit here and have the same masculine energy and feminine energy, and you have to sit here and have the same masculine and feminine energy. I think, again, it's about learning for ourselves, like, what we want, who we are, what we want, what we're comfortable in, and what turns us on. I'm imagining for some women being in their masculine energy is actually a bigger turn on than being in their feminine. And for some women being in their feminine energy, and for some men watching a woman in their feminine energy is more of a turn on than the masculine. I mean, all of these things are just
different variables on this,
And there's this component, I think, of really learning ourselves, being confident enough to have conversations about it. And what's true is that society is moving so fast these days that I think what's really true is this idea that we're going to get married and stay married for life, and that we should, and that's the goal, is probably at some point.
My belief is like it should come like a contract, like, hey, 5-year marriage and an option to renew.
Right. Well, there's, you know, like in Europe, they have like a whole separate section where people get like, it's essentially like common law marriage. And it's way easier to get out of it. Like, you just sign a paper and you're out, you know, and that's what predominantly why they say like in Europe, marriage has decreased. That's actually not true. People are choosing into this other section where they're together and everything's tied up together, but they're just not legally married in that way.
What's it called? Common law?
I can't remember what it's called. My husband's French, so I should know.
We'll look it up. So what do you think? I mean, we are in a certain wave of feminism right now. How do you think that's affecting women's sexuality? Positively, negatively?
Well, I think you know, people are doing different things with it. I think it's hard to say, like, generalizing about what one path. The freedom of women having rights to vote, to have property, to have businesses and bank accounts, you know, all of these things feel like huge steps in terms of equality and people getting to feel like humans versus cattle.
I used to call myself feminist after I heard this definition that it's basically having equal rights as a man.
Yes, right. I think we have to, in some regard, we're going to have to change it from feminism to just like equality. I think that there's this idea of, you know, I wouldn't say I'm like your best feminist. I don't do a ton of reading on it. I mean, I think of myself as like a humanist. Like, I want all humans to feel free and be able to live their lives in the way that they want to live them. And to put anyone down or put anyone in a space where they are dependent on another person to live their lives. I mean, to say that people were happier in the 50s when women couldn't leave, like literally couldn't leave because they had no money, they didn't have bank accounts, that was somehow better, that sex would be better, that relationships would be better because people were trapped. Like, it's relationships are
some people
complicated.
are trying to put our country back to the 50s and 60s, you know?
Right.
So coming back to the traditional ideas of man being a pursuer and a woman being the selector, does it still hold true with respect to sexuality and mating in our society?
I think in traditional heteronormative relationships, women are expecting to be pursued. I would say, if I had to guess, from still like 30, 35 years old on. The people that I work with that are younger is very different. I'd say people that I've worked with that are in their 20s, they don't have the same, like, I can't text back. Like, there used to be, you know, when dating apps came out, and probably you and my age and dating was happening, that like,
you gotta wait for a few days before somebody texts.
Well, the man had to wait. Don't be too eager. But he had to pay, and he still had to open the door, and he had to make the first move. And you know, there are some people who definitely still fall into that category. But I think what's true is that in the younger spaces, it is much more fluid. It just is. There's a person who's more dominant, more assertive, and there's a person who's less.
The gender could differ.
Doesn't differ. It could totally. Yeah, there's just a
Swedish
fluidity.
model where, you know, there's everybody asking out everybody and equally paying for the dates and all that.
But I know when I was dating, like deep in my dating years, and I was on Bumble right when it first came out, and I would ask men out, I could not get a date.
Oh, because they thought you were too forward?
I don't know. It just like, I mean, there could be a million reasons. I don't know. Maybe my profile sucked. Maybe I just kept matching with people that weren't into it. It's hard to say exactly, but I remember feeling like, oh, this whole thing about Bumble seems like it's not working. And it's different now. My clients that are on Bumble is different.
When you
should go sign back up and see what
right on
happens.
somebody or reject somebody, you should say a reason why. It would be a good feedback mechanism for
That's
people.
interesting.
You know what I mean?
Love that. We should
We're
contact
like,
them.
oh, not attractive enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm looking
Hate
for
their
something
profile,
else. Or like good, but photo sucks.
Yeah, whatever
so
the person wrote was lame.
That'd be cool, right?
You know?
Yeah.
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 That's an interesting idea. I like that. We should contact them.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think is, think about this idea that most women claim to be demisexual, which is they feel sexual only when they're emotionally connected to a person, or even if they start with having casual sex, women more likely end up having feelings in a relationship.
Oh, I disagree with it, but yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the whole demisexuality and women in general? Huh?
We are all humans and we all have feelings. And I think there is this idea, I go back to attachment theory, which is this idea of how do we attach to people. And in attachment theory, there's avoidant, which is what traditionally men get pivoted into. There's anxious, which women get pivoted into. And then there's secure or ambiguous, which goes back and forth between the two. Secure is this like, I'm neither avoidant or anxious. Those are big catch-alls. I think there's idea that like women always want relationship, that always want emotional connection. It's just not true. And I think
but is that like, I'm sure there are women who don't want that, but is it, I don't know, if 80% of women want that, then maybe the generalization is true.
I don't know that I would go that strong into it, because I think it's also like the statistic that men always want more sex.
Yeah.
It's not true. I would say a lot of the couples that I've worked with, the women are saying they want more sex.
Yeah.
So I think there's these generalizations that because we don't talk about these things that often, we just sort of have said like, this must just be how it is.
True, yeah.
And, I think women are conditioned to be more connected to their feelings.
Sure.
We have been choice makers in terms of yes and no's to eroticism because we're told that we can't be sluts. And we are told that we should hold this thing scarce from men, and men are told just go for it. You don't have to worry about it. Just go for it. Go for it. Go for it. But don't have any feelings about it. So again, I think there's this social pattern.
If you have feelings, if you approach, 10 women and you get rejected by 8, that you stay at home for 4 years.
Right, exactly, because this whole piece of like who's supposed to pursue and who's supposed to receive.
Put a wall on there.
Yeah, I think that there's so many things for us as a society to untangle. And again, I always work with people in like, what do they want and what's realistic? Because I think what's true for men that have to approach women, that's primarily the age group that I'm working with of the people who are dating, is like women are still expecting to be approached. They're not, these men are not going to get approached.
40s, 50s.
Right. And if they want something, they're going to have to pursue. And so men are going to have to stand in that go for energy. And also women who are struggling to date, like sometimes it is like they have to learn to stand back a little bit and let that man come towards them. And it's also experimenting with like, what are they okay with? Like, are you okay with this?
Yeah, I mean, personally speaking, I would like to live in a world where anybody could approach anybody.
Right, I know. Wouldn't it be great?
I would love to. So I've traveled around the world and I've gone to a lot of countries. And I can see why it is still a very unsafe world for a lot of for women.
Right, predominantly in the Middle East.
I have traveled to more than 100 plus countries. I wouldn't be comfortable her traveling to some of those places. As a guy, I feel comfortable traveling in some of these places. And I wish there was a world where women and men felt equally safe.
Right.
I felt unsafe as a man in some of these places.
Right.
So imagine me sending my daughter there.
Yeah.
And I feel like the more women feel safer, the more they would feel safer to approach men.
Right.
Because once you're safe, that nothing is going to happen. You feel empowered to do anything you want to do in your life.
Right. And you're also not going to feel
until women feel safer, men will have to bear the responsibility to do the heavy work in terms of dating.
Yeah. Right.
And the sooner, to all the men, right?
Yeah.
The sooner you can make the world safer for women, the sooner you
Right.
can take it off from your
Right.
shoulders or the burdens.
Well, it's reminding me of this story. I was at one of the sex clubs here in San Francisco, and I had a guy friend of mine that I'd been friends with for a very long time. And he's like, if you ever go to one of the sex clubs, just like hit me up. So I called him, like, hey, I'm going. You want to come meet me? And he had a hard time with no's. Like, he really had a difficult time saying no, which is interesting because women learn to say no because we have to, but men predominantly don't. So we're in this club, and a woman approaches us, and I knew he wasn't interested in her. I could tell right away. And she was like, well, she didn't know who we were, and she was just like, can I make out with your person that you're with? And I was like, well, you'll have to ask him. Like, I'm not going to make it but because I knew he had a hard time with his nose, and then he ended up saying yes and had this experience with this person. And after we talked about it, and he's just like, I feel like I can't say no. So if rules change and suddenly men get to say yes or no, it's going to be an interesting.
And it's a learned skill, right? Like I tell men generally, again, I'm generalizing here, but really bad at understanding their own intuitions.
Yeah.
Because they don't pay attention to their own intuitions, so they don't know exactly how they feel at any point in time. Right. And they go to their old wisdom of, what should I do in this moment?
I'm going to go by what society's told me to do versus what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So going back to, so do you get some lesbian bi women in your practice?
I do,
and are their problems slightly different than some of the other straight women, or like how does that differ generally?
No,
it's still
all the same
issues. And
it's all the same.
Orgasms and
it's all the same.
And all that, or...
long-term relationship is long-term relationship, and the place that people get stuck around intimacy, closeness, expression. I wouldn't say that there is a gender difference. And there are gender differences. There are differences for sure. But when we get into the meat of people and how people do relationships, we're all completely unique in that we're coming with our own troubles, defenses, traumas, and exactly the same in that we're all coming with. I mean, it's like we're all the same and we're all totally different. Yeah. In many regards.
Well, I'm gonna end this segment with this question. What are common fantasies you see women bring up and bring to the table?
Well, the big joke on this one is that their house is clean.
The guy's house is clean?
That someone cleans their house for them.
Like a French male maid
like I came
concept.
home and my whole house was clean and there's like nothing out of place. That's a slight joke. But I think I think if we were to generalize about what women want, I think that there is this feeling of like they want to be able to be fully sexually free without being judged. I don't know that most women would put it that way, but that's what I oftentimes hear is like they want to just be able to fully be themselves, to let go, to trust that they can, and that their partner is not going to think that's weird or gross or silly or stupid. And there's this hesitancy to show that oftentimes because there's so much concern that their partner would judge them. So I don't know if it's as much like as I could go into like that threesome thing that you hear a lot with men. I don't think women have that same like
But then if you're
clarity.
Free to do whatever you want, you could do whatever you want.
Right. In that is a lot of different stuff, actually. And I think for men too, I think that is what they want. I think you just hear about it in a more succinct way with men.
They have more defined rules.
Because they've been allowed to think about sex in a different way. Yeah.
Well, on that note, we'll end the segment about women and we'll come back for our last segment.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Welcome to our last segment of our conversation with Keeley Rankin. We are talking sex, relationships, and intimacy. In the last segment, we're going to talk about couples and other topics. So I'm going to start with a facts and figures question. How often do you think should couples be having sex for it to be a good sexual relationship?
Well, I hate the word should, but
Ideally.
how often are couples who say they feel sexual? I'll rephrase the question. How often are couples who say they feel sexually connected and satisfied having sex? Is that the one? Okay.
Sure.
I'd say around once a week.
Okay,
Once
so
to
that's
twice
good
a
enough.
week.
Once a week is good
Yeah.
enough? Okay.
Yeah, I would say couples that feel like it's a non-issue are around once to twice a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's another interesting thing about being in a relationship and having sex. So is self-pleasure while you're in a healthy relationship still considered healthy and encouraged? Or I've even heard things like, oh, if I'm in a relationship, I don't really think about it because I'm, fully satisfied.
Getting my needs
What
met.
is what is a good way to think
Right,
about this?
right. So I love that we're talking about this because I think it's actually truly very, very important for the health of a long-term relationship that plans to be sexual. That masturbation, I normally call it self-pleasuring, has to be a part of each person's practice, each person's experience in the world. Self-pleasure is there's two ways that humans are sexual in the world. They're either sexual with themselves through self-pleasure, or they're sexual with other person's people, right? And these are completely different experiences. They just, they're not the same. And so I think when the pressure of, and this is really difficult for people who stand in that space of like, I'm not going to masturbate, I have a partner.
Yeah.
I should get all of my pleasure met from this person.
Yeah.
It becomes on that partner so much pressure. If they get sick, if someone around them gets sick, if they're stressed out and they don't like to have sex when they're stressed, there's so many ways in a long-term partnership where eroticism is not the focus for that week, that month, those 6 months. There's just other things going on. And if you have one person that's going like, you meet all my sexual needs and these are my needs and you better meet them. And you're like, it's just not up there for me in this moment. But suddenly you have this pressure, like you have to do it. Then we start to enter into, I give you this thing that's not supposed to necessarily be a giving thing sort of experience, but we enter into that transactional space. And once we get there, it's hard to come back out of it.
I see. So would you say, what do you say to these people who are like, oh, I can't imagine you like did self-pleasure when you could have just asked me about stuff?
Yeah, so there's these two camps where it's like someone says, don't masturbate, come to me. I want to fill your need.
Yeah.
Or there's the camp where it's like,
it's different. I want to like,
I want to have a
both,
different,
right?
Some people feel really strongly that they want to fulfill their partner's needs and that they can and that they will.
They feel inadequate if the partner doesn't come to them,
Right. And so I think that's a really interesting place to explore. Like, why do you feel that way? What happens? What would, if the other person says like, okay, great, I'll always come to you, that's not a problem. But if the other person says like, actually, this is my private time and this is how I do self-care with myself, just like brushing my teeth or washing my hair, going to the gym, like this is a part of who I am that keeps me connected to me. And actually don't want you involved in all of that. Then there's different ways around it. Like, can that partner tell the other person, hey, I did this thing today and this is what I thought about? Or do they tell them before, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. I want you to think of me. Can that other person be in the room? Can that person film themselves and send it to them? Like, there's ways to include another person while still having that space for yourself. Now, sometimes the person who's like, I want my alone time is just like, I want to have the freedom to move in and out of it. There's something unique and special about my private sexual self-pleasuring time that I don't want to share with everybody else. And preserving that secrecy, privacy space becomes really, really important because sometimes it's the only place that people have to be private.
Yeah.
So it's figuring out for each person, like, what does it mean?
But but I was saying it's acceptable to have people have self-pleasure time. basically.
100%.
Yeah.
And I normally recommend with every couple that I'm working with that they each take time. And for some couples, I'll say, especially when it's like one person wants more sex and the other person, like more physical intimacy time, and the other person says, I don't, but then I find out that that person's masturbating a lot and that they're self-pleasuring a lot. I'll say, like, can you tell your partner when you're going to self-pleasure? You tell them after, so that we start to bring in, like, this person is a sexual being, but for whatever reason, it's hard to do it in partnership.
Together, yeah.
And not because we're blaming, shaming, scaring, making someone feel bad, but because we're trying to make it all okay.
So how does a couple's sort of sexual life change with kids and childbirth? Like, what is that like once a week?
You mean what doesn't change?
Nothing changes, huh? So once a week, is it like okay once a month now? Like how does that work? Huh?
Again, this is where those like blanket statements of once a week become really troublesome, because I think it just depends. You know, I'm thinking of a couple that I've been working with recently. I worked with them a couple of years ago, started working with them for some other stuff. And, you know, she was pregnant when we started working together. We were working through some really tricky things. There was a lot of sex happening. And she was about to give birth. You know, I mean, like, we stopped working together for a period of time because she was going to give birth. It was like, we'll come back in 3 months. There was second baby. They kind of knew what they were up against with an infant. You know, I think there's people with first children, and then there's people who have multiple children, and like what they expect for, what they set for. You know, I would love to at some point speak directly to people with young children and people parenting, because I think this is a whole different space than people who are not. Like, now that I have a child, I'm like, oh my God, I have no time. And I was working with a client a couple of days ago, and he's like, I have no time. I'm like, you don't have a kid. You don't know. Like, do you even, in my head, I'm like, do you even get to say that? Like, do you understand, like, every morning at 6:30? Or there was just like this like competitiveness that came up. And so I think having children and living in intimacy with someone is, it's totally different for everybody. And how people hold it and what they want and what they expect and what they're holding on to from the past, what they can let go of and how they transition in.
But is it a normal thing for people to expect to have lower intimacy when they have a kid?
Sure.
It's a normal
I think what's
rite of
not
passage.
normal is to say that you want it to be exactly the same as it was before, especially if you don't have help. I think if you have a lot of help, if you live close to family, if you have a lot of people that are able to help, and not just childcare, like the house things and all of that stuff, then yeah, I think that it could be like, I want this all to stay the same. But I think what's true about having children is you're not the same. I mean, it's a
you
trauma.
have an added responsibility of somebody who doesn't know to take care of themselves, you know.
Right,
so it's,
right. And you don't know who you are as a parent. You're a huge transformation.
You're also learning how to be a parent.
Right. So. What all those things mean and all of those things. I think oftentimes what happens is it just gets reprioritized.
Yeah.
Yet it is incredibly important to be in conversation about that, because I think what can happen is that one person says, fuck it, we're doing Kidland. I don't care. We're like, no sex off the table. I'm so tired at night. Don't touch me. I'm touched out.
And that's where
the other person's like,
happens,
wait a second.
I didn't sign up
Where'd
for
my
this.
wife go? Where'd my husband go? Why are we not connecting anymore? And then there can be the searching outside relationships or the resentments that build and all of the fights that happen. So these have to be really, really open conversations.
So talk about relationships. So how does infidelity, if it happens, affect sexuality in a relationship? Does it kill it? Does it supercharge it?
Both. Depends. Yeah.
So
I think sometimes, Esther Perel, again, we talked about her earlier in The State of Affairs, talks about this really eloquently, and I appreciate that book for those pieces.
What is that? Why do we love and cheat? There's a TED Talk about Esther Perel, I think, on
she has a great
why
one.
do we love and cheat, I think.
Right. There's a connection to a part of you. For some, affairs happen for many, many, many different reasons. Why people step outside their relationship, what they're looking for, what they get connected to. And I think for some people, there can be a experience within themselves when they meet another person, or a way in which someone sees them, or a way they feel about themselves when they get seen in that way. Especially if we're talking about with kids, because raising a child in today's society with so many uncertainties, it's like the questions of like preschool and schooling and public school and private school and like all the things you have to think about and like, is the world ending, and like, what about all the tree? You know, I mean, there's so many questions I think that parents are faced with that feel really stressful, along with all of the other stuff of managing a house. And then you add on that, like, we're supposed to have this romantic sexual relationship, and then you meet a person outside where there's none of that.
Yeah, so no baggage, huh?
You're just free in that spaciousness, as well as you feel like you're not supposed to. So now we're playing in taboo, which for some people really love the taboo space. And I think that that's a really, it's a tricky place. But for some couples, an affair can supercharge and make it like people are trying harder. People feel more turned on. They feel more seen. They're trying new things in the bedroom. And for other people, depending on how they feel about the affair, if they find out, can be completely...
So I had a friend from before. He was... I think he was married, and he had... a relationship outside his marriage, and he told his wife, and he was like, oh, I now see her dressing up like sexily and like trying to make an impression and all of that. I haven't talked to him since then, but I thought it was an interesting concept. I
always I've been watching a lot of movies lately where the infidelity happens, the affair happens, and it's like the worst thing in the world. And I'm always fascinated. Again, this goes back to, I think, my original interest in eroticism when I was a child. It's like, why does who we choose to share our bodies with impact so much who we've chosen to share our lives with?
Yeah.
And because for some people, those two things, it's like, I remember one time I was hanging out with, I don't know what you would say, situationship with this man, and he's like, oh, sex for me is like just playing tennis. Like, you don't want to play with the same person every time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I will always remember that conversation. And I was like, oh, I guess for some people it feels that way.
It feels that way, yeah.
But for other people, it's deeply, deeply different. And that commitment of marriage.
Some people say, like, why do you, do you cook at home every day?
Right.
You eat at restaurants, right? So
what do you do for Christmas?
Out, right?
That's a big one. What do you do for Christmas? Whose house do you go to for Christmas?
Or why would if I told you can only eat at home for the rest of your life, how would you feel?
Right.
So the same thing with a lot of people.
Right.
Understandably, that there is this whole concept of creating a baby and all of that comes into the mix. But if you take that away,
with birth control, which we did,
and then how did that look like in the new society?
Right.
And we have to think about,
Right. Well, we're sitting in San Francisco, which is like inevitably with any couple. Mostly, I talk with these days. We're having a conversation of monogamy, non-monogamy, polyamorous, all these pieces, and some couples can have that conversation. Some couples can say, because of their nervous system, their attachment style, they can allow those conversations to unfold. And some people's nervous systems cannot. Yeah. And I think that's where the affair becomes...
Some people are,
right. And that's, I think, where the cheating affairs becomes intolerable and relationship breaking with people who can't comprehend. Because the affair is also a rupture of trust. You're a person I thought you were. You did this thing I didn't think you could do. And oftentimes in the relationships where it's such a huge rupture, it really truly feels like, I don't know you anymore. And so it isn't even necessarily what you did, even though that's bothering. It's like, I can't believe
you did that.
You, who I've done all of these things with for so many years, like, how did I miss that you could do something like that?
But people could change over time. As
people are always changing. That's a huge misconception.
Something good, right? So is that a concept of like this boring old couple where the two are hardly getting it on at some point, and that's a meaningful relationship?
Absolutely.
In the future.
Absolutely. I think can be in our society this overemphasis that always getting it on means a healthy relationship. First off, that doesn't mean anything. People who are having frequent sex doesn't necessarily mean their needs are getting met,
compatible,
that they're happy. I think oftentimes it does. And I think that there is a distancing that happens when people don't feel close. But I think there's a real question when you're older, do you want to be getting it on?
All the time,
what is your intentions
your-
in life? Where are you spending your energy? What's interesting
Maybe the
to
dating
you?
apps should have how often do you like to have sex?
I mean, that would be.
That would be a good matching criteria for people.
But if people could really answer that, because I
honestly,
think
if you
people.
gotta answer honestly about. I mean, I'm like a lot of guys are like, oh, 3 times a day. Like really, like come on, like would you really want that, or
Yeah.
would you?
Well, because there's something that happens really interesting when we're not. And this, I think, is what is at the heart of eroticism, which is like when we're not getting our erotic needs met.
Yeah.
There's nothing that tortures us like that ghost.
Yeah, yeah.
There's just
So
nothing.
they said that sex is like oxygen. If you get enough of it, you don't care about it. If you
Yeah.
don't get any,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
crave for it. you
Right,
know? So,
right. I mean, for so long in my couples, I was the higher drive person that I
Yeah.
would be pushing it, I'd be wanting it, I'd be leaving relationships because I wasn't getting it enough until I met someone like my husband, where it's just like he trumps me every time. Like I'm good, and he's like again, you know. I mean, and then I'm suddenly like now I'm in that position of like, oh,
everybody takes a possession in the relationship. Yeah, somebody's always wanting more.
it's very rare that both people are like fully compatible.
yeah.
And I think that that's also a huge misconception in couples, is that there's going to be this place where you're both just good.
Yeah.
And
No, that's always
there's
gonna be
there's typically one person wants a little bit more and one person
Yeah.
who's like okay and sort of, you know, and that's all
Yeah,
right.
as long as it's not like 90-10, it's you're okay. Like
Right.
you know, you're somewhere in between. So how are couples navigating like polyamory and non-monogamy in sexuality, and is it like very common? And then how is that playing into today's society? Yeah.
You know, I think that these new old relationship ideas are really interesting. You know, I think when we look back in different societies, we see places where it was like there's a night where everyone just can have sex with whoever. I mean, you know, there's societal ideas that we've put onto relationships. Again, if we go back to that Catholicism, control, peace, patriarchy, all of these components. And I think people are really starting to question that in a beautiful way. And it's not just about sex. It's about like spaciousness and freedom and what do I have a right to and what is relationship? Like, is relationship just sexual exclusivity? Is that what a real relationship is? And I think a lot of couples are starting to wake up to this idea of like, it's deeper than that. There's more meaning than just sexual exclusivity, and that there are other needs. And I think as we explore sexual territories, we see sometimes that some people have really, really big needs in a lot of different categories, and no one person could fill that. And there's an openness to like, oh, you really, really want power play. You really, really want to play in this dominant, assertive, degrading space, but I can't do that with you. And
So
I maybe
that's
could with someone else, but I can't with you.
Yeah, because I feel more dominant with you, whatever, right?
Right.
Like,
And so how do you get that need met without foregoing it? And what does that mean to us as a
and
couple?
still not break us as a couple.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I want this really sensual, slow, crying, eye contact sex, but you just like to fuck hard. And so how do I get that? I've been asking you for it and you can't give it. And like, so do I go and find another person who can do this for me? Or, you know, I
up
want
a
someone with a
relationship or
different type of,
something,
like a different gender. Like I want to date someone who's also a woman, who's also a man, and you just don't have this energy. And so I think I really love the couples that are coming and asking those questions, because oftentimes they're very, very thoughtful about what do they want.
At least they're taking the first step towards, you know,
Right.
going.
And I think what most people
want, you know?
find is like, well, this is really fucking complicated, and they pull back because it's just like a lot of work.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, I have a day job.
Especially with kids. They're like, wow, I don't
kids
have the
and
time.
job and then
They're like, I don't
career.
have the time. Or I don't want to put the energy in.
Any particular issues that you've seen, different sort of issues with transgender couples? Have you worked with any of them?
You know,
or-
honestly, I just haven't worked with enough people
Yeah.
to really speak eloquently on that. Yeah.
What do you think is, I know we talk, conversation, grief affects sexuality. Like, is that, what is the grief about generally? Are these loss of something, or is it,
Yeah, you know, I think my curiosity about grief and eroticism comes from many different components. One, when I was very young, I mentioned I loved to ride horses. I rode competitively, and I watched a woman die at a horse event, and it was, I guess we would use the word now, traumatic, but at the time it was just, this really interesting connection with grief, loss, death in a very tangible way. And I feel like my work in general has been incredibly informed by such a profound human experience as to be so close to the ultimate loss that we will inevitably end up at. And, sex is this thing that's like we can do while we're alive, and we can all do it. And there's so many unknowns, just like death, really. It's also taboo. No one wants to talk about it. No one wants to talk about death. I mean, there's so many parallels. And death is one version of grief that can deeply impact how people relate to their eroticism. But as I have spent more and more time over the years thinking about how grief impacts, there's so many layers of grief. And I remember a client that I was working with who had been married for a couple of years, and he came in, it was like the fifth or sixth sex person he tried to meet with to talk about these things. And he said to me, like, I'm just worried that I'm going to have an affair. Like, I don't know what to do. I just can't stop thinking about it. And as we worked together for a couple of sessions, I was like, oh, he is in a huge grief of meeting the person that he loves deeply, that he wants to share his life with, but he has to let go of the idea that he had just started to feel like he'd come into himself when he met his wife, his eroticism, his masculinity, his confidence. He was like, I can really get the women that I want for once in my life. And it didn't happen until his like mid-30s. But then he met his wife and he fell in love with her, and he wanted to start this with her. He didn't want to lose the opportunity, but he felt deep grief around never having had this like casual sex that all of his friends had talked about that he thought he needed to have or should have. And he just didn't know what to do with that. And the fears and the stories that he came up with about like what would happen and what it would look like to accept that he wasn't going to get it. And he really didn't want to accept. His wife was not open to non-monogamy, at least from where he was sitting at that point. And there was all of these pieces. And I think it also is a transition with having a baby. It's like the life you lived before, the freedom you had before, the 9 a.m. yoga classes and the coffee with friends after. I mean, all of that is gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. And the sitting with, and sometimes I think too with children is like, is it that you have kids in the house and you're so exhausted, or is it that you're grieving your past life of like who you were, who you were and who you'll never be ever again. And really, when we think about grief, that's what we're talking about. Is like something has occurred that you will never, and you will never be the same. Someone has died, something has died, and you will never be the same.
Yeah, it's interesting how, I two things I can remember about grief. One was, when my dad died at a certain point, somehow it evoked a desire in me to have a kid. I don't know whether that is, and I was grieving for some time. Grief.
Did that happen right away, or it happened like over time?
A year-ish, yeah.
And you didn't feel like you wanted children before?
No, I mean, not strongly at all.
Yeah.
So there was that thing, and then I've heard stories about people getting really turned on in funerals.
Yeah.
And these
was a safe space to
see
feel
death, because the death is so close that they celebrate life and they celebrate creation, which is sexual energy basically, right? So I thought it was interesting.
It is.
These two things.
Right.
So
and people just do such different things with grief. How we process grief, what happens with grief, how we identify grief. And it's the same, I think, about like with anxiety. Like some people who get anxious want to have more sex. Like the more pressure, the more they want sex as an outlet. Other people, as anxiety layers on, they're like, sex is the last thing I want.
Yeah.
I normally think like 90% of people with anxiety or feel pressure, tension don't want sex. But there's this 10%
like overdrive,
magical category, because I'm not that. That's like, I feel anxious, but I would definitely fuck right now. They're a mystery to me, but they are there.
They're like achievers in life. So what happens when sexual energy is blocked in your mind and practice? And
So I think
is
at
that
a base layer, I think of blocked erotic energy as the body having almost like a brick wall. I go back always into the body with eroticism. So it's like somewhere in the body, there's something holding and it's stronger than erotic energy. I think of erotic energy more as like a spillover. It's not strong enough to just like push things out of the way. So I often go in as like, let's see where things are blocked and see how we can start to open space up, because eventually it will spill over into complex and sometimes really scary negative places. Not always though. Some people can just keep it dammed up and it just never flows.
Yeah.
And they just stay in that space. But the beautiful thing about today, with all of these pieces in education, people are starting to want more for themselves. And I think that spillover is sometimes the reaching out for help, actually. It's not always spilling over into like really weird places or places that hurt people. But sometimes it's spilling over into like, okay, I'm going to reach out for help.
Yeah. So in terms of, spillover and healthy transformations, like, I believe you're all born of the creative sexual energy.
Absolutely.
We're here because of that. Life is imbued through the sexual energy from our parents. And, there's some work that we do to transform. Some artists transform their sexual energy to creative energy.
Right. Yeah.
Some monks transform it to spiritual energy.
Right.
So is it possible to not be sexual but sort of still harness sexual energy in your opinion?
Right.
Or do you have to,
well, the
your
Taoists
practice,
would believe that you never ejaculate for the most part and you keep that erotic energy inside
and that's how
of
you
you.
achieve God, or like there's a divinity angle to
Right.
this.
You hold this in and you connect with it.
Semen retention, they call it, actually, for men.
Right. The people, the folks that come into my office are looking to sort through like pretty practical.
They're like, I want to have sex, like not like
They're
I want
like,
to be a monk.
I just feel like we're missing out on something and we're not getting along and like something's not right here. We need help. I think on some level though, there is a question of like, what is this huge, immense energy? We see it in animals as, the rhino gets all the women, or these things. We see how it can unfold.
Aggression and a lot of the other energies. Yeah.
But I think there's a huge question of like, what is possible with it, and to say that we can all turn it into, subliminate it into art or into religion, I think is a very, very deep choice about the way to live life.
And they if you believe some of the Eastern philosophy, the chakra system, the root chakra, having the sexual energy and working
Moving
it
up,
up to your head chakra, to then having more spiritual experiences, if I may, is sort of the ultimate kind of panacea.
Right. Well, the Tantra space, which is the kind of like the energetic erotic blueprint, which we didn't get into today, but like their shadow side, which all the blueprints have these shadow sides, is like that the Tantra is the way to go and anybody else doing it is wrong. That's like one of their belief systems. And again, I think it's like, it's not about putting ourselves into categories. Like if there's anything anybody gets from this today, it's like there's no category that anyone should fundamentally be in other than the category of like, this is your body. You get to say yes or no. And can you soften and feel into it and into its pleasure? Yeah. Because to say like, okay, you've got to connect with these chakras, you've got to do it this way. Again, we're getting into this like, you've been doing it wrong this whole time. And I know better than you, or these people know better than you, or this knows better than you. And this is how you should do life. And again, it takes agency away from people. I think it's nice to have a sense of like, here's a path you could go down. Here's the next place you could explore. But it takes away from the curiosity. It takes away from people building confidence. And it ultimately lands people in like, well, what's next? So I did this thing for a year, but then everything disappears because they didn't actually build the creativity, which is so necessary to long-term erotic connection, is that creativity, that playfulness, that like, how do I explore you? Because you're always changing. Your body is always changing. Can I come with that curiosity versus I know where your erogenous zone is. I know what you like, which is where sex gets flat and boring.
Yeah. So as we end this conversation, Keeley, what's your sex therapist, relationship intimacy coach tip number one for people watching if they want to embrace their sexuality better?
My tip number one.
Going back to basics, huh?
Yeah, I think the thing I say the most is to slow down. Slow down everything. Slow down the conversations that you're having. Slow down your thoughts in your head. Slow down your body. Slow down the sex that you're having in general. Just slow everything down and give yourself a chance to feel impulses, to feel whatever's there.
Yeah.
Grief, pain, sadness, excitement, fear, whatever it is that might be in there, to fully feel it. Because the pathway through to amazing, great sex isn't learning the next best blowjob skill. It's truly connecting to your body and deeply, deeply feeling yourself and your impulses and being able to follow those and to meet another person that can do the same. And then you meet in that place, and that's where amazing sex can happen.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we're going to end this conversation. Thank you, Keeley, for all
You're very welcome.
Good, juicy conversation today.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.